Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting where we are reconvening from closed session. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second that. I'll second.
Didn't I do that?
I don't think I got you.
Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open the meeting up to public communication. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have 11 speakers, so the time will be limited to a minute and a half.
Thank you. I'd like to remind the citizens that if you'd like to speak on an item, please put your card in prior to us starting the conversation about the item so we can maintain order. Thank you.
Our first public speaker is Melva Burkhart, and then Bernard Gunderman.
Speak for me, please.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Melva Burkhart, and we are representing, you guys all stand up, please? All of these people and us who live at Cottonwood Estates. And we are here with our neighbors to talk to you about the security at that building, at that mobile home park. Our community has been under attack, Melva wrote this, from the thieves and burglars increasingly for many past months. One resident was murdered 11 months ago. Another was broken into twice. Lois, who's here, is one of the speakers tonight, and she'll be telling you about that. Criminals are breaking into our homes to steal our prescription drugs, cash, and other valuables. 2 were driven out of their homes because of fear. We were directed by the manager to confront strangers in our park. Melva confronted a young man and asked him if he lives here, and he said very rudely, "Why do you want to know? Mind your own business." We have been proactive in installing motion detectors and burglar alarms. 3 elderly residents do foot patrol at night. 2 of them are feeble and very vulnerable, and they use megaphones as a way of deterrent. We appreciate the response by the chief of police already when we were here 2 weeks ago by adding some patrol hours in our park. The 150.
Sir, excuse me. We have a lot of speakers tonight, and your time is up. I apologize to you.
It's my turn.
Yes, sir.
So Bernard.
Thank you. Again, thank you for your concerns from last time. And I have 2 caveats before we start, and then I'll be very brief. One is that the lady who was killed 11 months ago was a very good friend of mine. So my comments are somewhat prejudiced by the fact that she was not only my neighbor, but my best friend. The second one is a question about the ownership and management of Cottonwood Estates, and that's not for this forum, but I would like the ability to talk to you, the city manager or the city attorney later about that in some other avenue or however that works. Because once I get the answer to the question I have, I can tell my neighbors the answer to that question to save time and to follow the protocols. Having said that, then, I just want to add on to what Melva said, that it is really bad. I have lived in Cottonwood for 8 years, and it was bad, been bad for 8 years. But after the death of Jane, we thought things would improve, and they have not only improved, they've gotten worse. And my only statement, because I don't have any time, is I'm 69 years old. I have never had a weapon next to me in bed. I now have one every night. And I'm in pretty good health. We have 90-year-olds We have people who can't hear, who can't walk, who can't see. We need your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Lampe, and then Mary Klieg.
I'm Mary Lampe, and I have had this problem for quite a while. At night, there's been somebody knocking at the door, and lately it's getting louder and louder. I'm 79 years old, honey, and it's very scary. I must be a crazy person, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm really scared.
Have you called the police?
I called the police, but the police told me they'll let you catch it and we cannot do anything about it. And I have called this, whoever does this, is after he knocks, sometimes I even sleep on the couch, you know, to make sure that I would hear the guy. By the time I get to the door, he's gone. I called the police and they said they cannot really do anything about it unless I can identify the person. I can't. And that's about the extent of it.
My name is Mary. I've lived 42 years at Cottonwood Mobile Home Park, and it has become a place where people wander through the park day and night, and there's nobody to stop them from going from door to door. They climb over the chain link fence, they take bicycles, they break into homes and rob people of their jewelry and their money and their possessions. And we have very poor security whenever we have had anyone patrol. We don't have any full-time security measures, and it's not a gated, it's an open community. And there's little we can do, even though some have dogs and have motion detectors and cameras. Nobody has been able to apprehend individuals that are abusing and robbing us and frightening us. And Jane Putnam was an in-home health care provider and had been ill before she was robbed and murdered. And I, as an in-home support service person, people have contacted me at different hours, and I try very hard to be supportive for my neighbors, but we just don't have any leg to stand on to make us feel safe.
Lois Wilson, and then Frank Johnson.
Hello, my name is Lois Wilson. I'm kind of new, moved into the park. And I was in my living room, almost asleep, and I heard a crash and glass breaking, and I thought it was in the back bedroom. But when I went to the kitchen, into my laundry room, the guy was there at the door, and he was breaking the glass out and kept telling me, call the police because someone's breaking in your car. But they weren't anybody, it was him. And he continued and continued, and I went down the step out the door and went to a neighbor, and the guy was awake and he let me in, called the police, and my son and daughter-in-law. I have been so frightened, I haven't been able to sleep at all. I sleep maybe an hour or two during the day, but I can't sleep at night at all. And I know they caught the guy, but he's been released, and I don't feel comfortable at all. I have no protection, and I just wish there was something that can be done to at least, protect some of us in the park. I just wish that you could help us some way where some of us, wouldn't have to.
Frank Johnson, and then Kay Castro.
Yes.
City Councilor and Vice Mayor, amen. I'm Frank Johnson. I'm here talking about PG&E, amen, shutting off power. And this week, last week, they shut it off twice, and they made my wife lose money. So PG&E need to come up with some kind of system that they could be able to pay these people when they lose work, because they're shutting off the power and they can't go to work. So that make money lose out of my house, and not only my house, but other people's houses. And we yet got bills to pay. They getting paid, but we not getting paid because we can't work because they're shutting off power. So they need to come up with a system that they're gonna pay us or else leave the power on.
Kay Castro, and then Bill Spear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council people. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot going on in our city. I also want to thank you for the recent tree trimming that was done. I witnessed it over there on Montgomery Street. I want to also thank you for increased police presence. I live downtown and I'm seeing many more patrol cars than I've seen in the past. I want to thank you for that. At the Salmon Festival on Friday night, there was a huge bus of people from Marin, and we sat with some people from San Jose who came up just to see our town and be at the Salmon Festival. It's a wonderful opportunity for us. People are coming to the city, and I hope that we can continue these efforts. Thank you.
Bill Spear, and then Bobby O'Reilly.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I come here tonight to pray for our city, continue to ask for God's blessing and His wisdom. Pray for the people in Cottonwood Estates, and that there has been a change in our city, and it is noticeable, and I'm thankful for the momentum that's building up. And so, Father, I thank you for this opportunity to intercede for our city, to make our requests for the people in Cottonwood Estates and all our vulnerable citizens, Lord, that they'd have peace that surpasses all understanding. We pray for our police force that are on the front lines attacking at the heart of the problem. And we pray for our citizens that we would look for opportunities to stand alongside and to make a difference. Thank you for all the service groups and all of the people of our community that are serving and making a difference. Thank you for the firefighters, and Lord, as we coming up to a year since the travesty in Paradise, we pray that you would give us supernatural provision, supernatural wisdom, supernatural power to address these problems for your kingdom and for your glory. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Bobby O'Reilly, and then Amy Jernigan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I would just like to remind councilors that I sent out a letter to the administrators quite some months ago, and the administrator sent the inquiry to the city attorney, and the response back for councilors having individuals blocked on their social media accounts that they use to update the public regarding community events, council events, so forth and so on, that council members are not allowed to, elected officials are not allowed to block constituents on the accounts that they use to do any city business or update the constituents about city business. I am still blocked by councilors on their social media accounts. The letter that was sent back to me stated that the city attorney was notifying the councilors that they were not to be doing that, and I left it at that. I just wanted to make it public record that I am still blocked, and I would like that to be fixed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Amy Jernigan, and then Carol Anderson.
I'm here tonight representing Recology. Wanted to let you know what we have going on this Saturday, October 5th at Wyandotte Academy. We are doing a volunteer project. We are going to do some landscaping, kind of revitalize the school, make it look a little bit cleaner and nicer. The community gardening, putting in some new compost, and painting the kindergarten playground as a holistic playground, something more interactive and fun for the kids. We have, as of this afternoon, 80 employees and their families signed up. We'll probably have a few more by the time Saturday rolls around. So to us, this is a big deal. It's a way for us to show that, hey, Recology's here. We're a good community partner, and we're wanting to give back. If you guys want to come and see us and hang out, you're more than welcome. We start 8 o'clock, and we have a great lunch around 11 to noon whenever we finish. So just wanted to let you know. I have some flyers that give you information if you're interested, and I'll just leave them with Bill. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Carol Anderson, and then the last speaker I have for this item is the cameraman.
Carol Anderson, and I took the time yesterday to attend the Oroville Dam Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, and I would like to commend Councilman Pittman and Councilman Smith for taking the time to attend that also. I hope that this will be useful to our community. I noticed some people are on the roll as being a member of that committee, and I hope you will find the time to attend also, since that's important when you're a member of a committee, isn't it? Anyway, I hope that you'll be participating in that, and I'm glad to see that all members of our council are now being represented on some committees, since we did vote for all of them. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'd like to respond to your comment. I'm on that roll. I am on that committee. The senator asked me to sit with him, and I asked Councilmember Pittman to attend in my stead because my son was being sworn in the United States Navy, and I didn't want to miss that. So.
Our last speaker for public comment is the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. On September 25th, 2019, between 11:30 p.m. and 11:40 p.m., some Oroville police officers pulled a vehicle over into the AM/PM located at 2639 Orodam Boulevard West. The traffic stop lasted approximately 7 minutes. At the end of the stop, this officer right here took it upon himself to go over to his partner, or I should say colleague in this situation, since they weren't riding in the same vehicle, to take that spotlight, deliberately angle it away from the vehicle they had stopped towards me and my camera to prevent me from filming. This also blurred my vision and caused my vision to be blurred temporarily. PC 148G clearly states that filming is not interference, nor can it be considered a crime. When I went to speak to a supervisor about this, Officer Stott, in my opinion, we need to have a sergeant. He is not strong enough in his position right now to properly be a supervisor, but he explained to me that even though that this is beneficial to an officer to blur a suspect's potential vision in certain situations, it is not the level of criminal action, even though battery specifically states in Penal Code 242 that battery is unlawful force upon another person, and my vision was blurred, and
Mr. Mayor, that is the last speaker that I have for this item.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to consent calendar. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
A second.
Okay, no items.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, could we have a report out of closed session, please?
Report out of, go ahead.
In the closed session, no action was taken, direction was given to staff.
I thought I gave that when we came in. Okay, all right. Reporting out of closed session, no action taken. Direction was given, though.
Mr. Mayor, staff would respectfully request to pull item number 4 and continue it till the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to pull item number 8. I don't have enough information on this item to make a decision. So moving on to item number 5, acceptance of proposal from Designs Build Incorporated for the Dispatch Center, excuse me, and Capital Improvement Project.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, councilors. What's before you here tonight on this item is a remodel of the police dispatch center. This has been a project that's been ongoing for about 3 years. This had been previously, the monies for this have been previously approved out of, I believe it's in the packet here for you in the back. In 2016, the progress was put out to an RFP. One proposal was received during that process. The only proposal received is the one before you here through Design Build Incorporated. It was a design build project, so that may have been why we only got one proposal, but nonetheless, we only got one. And this is an old building. This is going to involve a remodel of a portion of the downstairs of the police department. It's going to install a hallway over to the fire department so the two departments are connected, and it's going to remodel the upstairs and move our dispatch center into the upstairs portion. It's also going to create a training room and the ability to use that room as a EOC if if a situation dictates and there's the need for one within the city, that would be available there as well. The cost is $378,509. The amount that was put to this project was $525,000, and like I said, that was in 2016. All I'm asking for is the consideration to accept that proposal for that amount with a 10% contingency. The reason I asked for a 10% contingency is because it was a design build. It's an old building. We don't know what they're going to find when they get in the walls, and if there's that 10% contingency where there can be fluctuation, that still would, albeit add $37,000, we would still be well within the $525,000 allocated. I do think that later on, actually I know later on, I'll bring back the amount to move all the server room, buy the electronics, the tables, the chairs, and things that need to fill there, which still will be within the 125. This is just the $378,509 with a 10% contingency, so we can move forward with the demolition and the remodel of the building. I think it's important to note that in this process, this is a 2-story building. We are installing a man lift. That's the name of the company. It's Man Lift. It's very similar to what you have here in the City Hall, where if there's a wheelchair dependent person, they can still get up and down the stairs to make it ADA compliant.
The additional upgrades to the building are also going to include an ADA compliant walk path from the sidewalk to the front of the building, which currently doesn't exist because this was built prior to the implementation of ADA, so that will have to also be installed. The server room is being moved. The purpose for that is that the server room currently is also a room that is the only access to the roof. So there's a hole that with a latch and a hood that opens in there. The servers are directly underneath that. So should in an event where for some reason the thing fail or it be left open and it rain, you are exposing hundreds of thousands of dollars of computer hardware to the wet elements. It's also temperature controlled and it varies in there. The door is accessible to anyone. So we're moving this to a more protected area of the department that is going to be climate controlled in and of itself. The reason why the necessity of the contingency also is in there for the chief's building is the uniqueness of the building. In a home, you'll typically wire a wall and all of the plugs will be wired together. It'll be on one circuit. In the dispatch center, what's going to be necessary to do is each plug needs to be on its own independent circuit. That way, if you do lose power to one station, all stations don't go down. So it's going to have some unique features in it. There's going to be some things that are discovered when the walls are opened up that were not anticipated that we're going to have to deal with. The upstairs, to this point, has not been finished. It's an unfinished space of the police department. It's wasted space that's currently up there now. So what the chief's proposing is to utilize that space, become into ADA compliant, and also upgrade your EOC room, because the issue you've had with your EOC room over the years is you really haven't had one because it's not ADA compliant. So we really couldn't open up a EOC without getting ourselves into some trouble because we didn't comply with ADA requirements. So this will do that. This will also give you for lack of a better term, a state-of-the-art training facility for not only for police personnel, fire personnel, but also for city staff and for meetings too, because now we can open up the upstairs to hold larger meetings for larger groups than what this room will contain or what the fireside room will contain. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that. The money comes from the RDA bond residual. This was originally allocated of $525,000 in 2016. It's taken to this point to get this to here, and I believe what the chief is looking for tonight is authorization to let the contract to this company for $378,509 plus a 10% contingency, which would come out to $37,850 additional. And our experience has always been, and I think Councilman Hatley will join me in this one, is that if we put it there, they'll take it. So there will be something that will eat this money up. I don't know what it is at this point, but I'm sure that we're going to find that out as we open up those walls and we get into this project.
Sir, Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I appreciate the project. I have some familiarity with the building as I was there when it was done. One of the unique things in that building, and I didn't see it here, is the second floor has no windows. So if you have the idea of putting a window up there, that would be a great idea.
Yes, sir. There is actually 4 windows in the plan in the dispatch center, 2 out the front of the building and 2 out the opposite building for airflow and through there. That's the plan. That's where the dispatchers are going to be housed upstairs, and there will be in the project plan there are 4 windows to be installed.
It was built under the idea that we didn't need windows, so there was no windows in that building. And on the fire department side, they've had to add windows and had to add exterior doors. So I appreciate that. The design was pretty well flawed to start with when it started, but that and I'm not trying to say those windows need to be openable, but the air conditioning system also needs to be a fresh air conditioning system. The one previously installed, at least a couple of those ACs were not.
Understood.
So make sure you're getting fresh air up there, especially to people who are going to be there 24 hours a day.
And the windows are openable windows.
Okay, good.
The idea was for fresh airflow through the dispatch center.
Yeah, thank you.
And just the mere fact that for the last however many years they've been there, there's not been a window to the outside for them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilman Pittman, with the upgrade of the air conditioning, the HVAC system that was on the building that was conducted last summer, I believe is when they did that, they all do have fresh air intakes, so it's a mix, it's a blend. It depends on the hotter it gets outside, that damper begins to shut unless hot air or warm air from outside is taken in. So it does incorporate fresh air into the building.
Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. At one time when we were talking about redoing that upstairs, the ADA issue was one issue, of course. But then there was something about having to put in a fire escape or something, stairs and a door or something to get out of that room up there. Has that changed, or what do we do with that?
Yeah, we incorporated an accordion-style partition so that, and added an additional door in the hallway, so there is one over one half the diagonal separation between exits from the room. So now there's technically 2 exits from that room, eliminating the need for punching a hole in the outside of the building and adding that exterior staircase from there.
Because when they talked about it before, that wasn't going to cut it. You couldn't go from one room into another and call that an exit. It just wasn't going to work that way. That it had to go out of the building. And that's why I'm wondering what's If something's changed, that's great, but at one time, that was a big issue for us, and that's why we didn't do it before, and it was going to be quite an expense, and then they were going to try and vent it by Schwab there, some out the side there, but there was, between their fence and property line and the building, I don't know, there were some issues with that. I think Dave may remember it, but so I'm just trying to figure out, because to me, putting up a petition doesn't give me another exit out of the building. It gives me maybe out of that room,
Right.
but it's supposed to be out of the building, was my understanding. So if that's changed, great.
It's not out of the building, it's to the exit corridor. And that exit corridor is where we're adding the additional door into the protected corridor, which allows you another path to travel out of the building. So it meets all the code requirements that are there, meets current code. And it allows you to also have a separation into two separate offices up there as well. But no, it's fully code compliant. It's an ability to be able to, it's using the code to get to a safe exit.
And Councilman Hatley, I think I can clarify what the confusion was on this. Previously, what had been discussed is the reason why the door couldn't go out to the Les Schwab side to the empty parking lot was because we're right against the property line. We didn't have adequate room. We'd have to do a lot line adjustment and then go through that whole process. Then it had to be an ADA compliant path to another ADA compliant path, which meant that the slope of the walkway was going to be, we'd end up over in Les Schwab's lobby before we got the proper slope. So that issue made it very difficult. But what really made it difficult was that previously it had been looked at of putting this elevator or lift into one of the stairwell shafts that are on the north and south ends of the building. So you would lose one of those shafts, which would require you to have the second exit to the outside. This proposal doesn't include that. Both stairwell shafts remain, and the lift will be put into it's small enough, it'll go into like essentially a closet area.
Right.
That is there. So we're not eliminating one of those stairwells now. That's the difference between then and now.
You do understand, I'm not
No,
against
absolutely.
this
No, no.
project. I'm just trying
What
to figure
changed?
out
Sure.
what changed, because
Right.
I know that was an issue at one
Right.
time.
Our way of thinking about it, because we were talking about a full boat elevator that was going to take up that entire shaft, and we were going to lose the entire stairwell.
Okay. And then, will this also open up, because there's another, for lack of a better term, conference room on the fire side. Will this make that now accessible, or is that a totally separate thing, since they are connected with a door?
That will
but-
also become ADA compliant.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. That would just kind of give us double the space if we needed it.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One last quick
Councilmember Pittman.
Did we ever put sprinklers in the staircases?
I don't believe there's.
When it's raining.
And it has leaked. But the reason
No.
because
I
Hadley
don't-
brought up a big
there's-
point.
There's no.
It could be that we just put some spot fire sprinklers on those in the staircases themselves, and that would satisfy the requirement. We have that in a lot of cases around, so it's just a thought to look at, that's all.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments from the dais, Madam Clerk, do we have any citizens that would like to speak on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speaker cards for this item.
Having no speakers on this item, we're looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 8817 with a 10% contingency not to exceed.
I'm sorry, who seconded it? Okay. Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 6, limiting or prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco products in Oroville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This item is just a follow-up on the presentation that we had the previous council meeting regarding vaping liquids, flavored tobaccos. What we're looking for from staff at this point, since the council has to have this come back, is what would be the direction of the council? The council has a couple different options, well, 3 different options. You can do nothing, leave it as it is. You can set up some sort of a restriction on where these products are sold, or you can prohibit the sale of these products. If you choose 2 or 3, which would be a restriction or a prohibition of the sale of these products, you would be looking at probably the first of the year before something like that could go into play. This item would be prepared by our planner. It would go back to the Planning Commission at the first Planning Commission in October, the only Planning Commission, which I believe is October 24th. After that, it will be brought back to the council for the first reading of the ordinance, because we will have to amend Title V and Title 17 of the municipal code, dependent upon the direction the council gives. So it will come to a first reading in November, a second reading in December, and then implementation 30 days after that. So what we're looking for on this is just simply direction from the council. Is the council looking for, what would the council like us to do?
Thank you. Councilmember Smith would like to speak on this.
So I think that we need to look at a couple of different options. I think everyone in this room is well acquainted with the fact that this has become a pretty big deal. Sacramento just recently banned menthol cigarettes and also all the flavored juices and whatnot. So they went pretty heavy as far as addressing this for their constituents in Sacramento. And I think that for me, direction to staff would be perhaps to come back with a couple of different recommendations and what that would look like. One of the conversations was to ban the items that I already suggested to only be allowed in I think there's 3 or 4 smoke shops that we have here in town, so that adults would continue to have access. And then to a little more, for lack of a better word, draconian, similar to what Sacramento has done as another option to look at.
Well, Councilman Smith, those was what it would look like. Exactly what you said. I mean, it's either going to be restricted to tobacco shops for 21 and over, or it's going to be prohibited. There's not a lot of caveats to that.
Yeah, and then I think it's important with those two to hear from our citizens as to their input. I mean, what are they looking
Correct.
from us?
The input would come at a public hearing at the Planning Commission. You would also have a public hearing at the council in November. Then you would have a second meeting at the council in December. So there'll be 3 opportunities. What we're looking for is what would you like us to craft and take to start through that process? Because certainly I'm fairly confident that what we start with will not be what we end with.
Fair enough.
Are there any other speakers from the dais? Councilmember Draper.
Question. Hypothetically, if we were to just outright ban it, I know people have said, well, there are people who like those tobaccos that are adults, but the main problem is that kids are getting it. So if we allowed 5 shops to continue selling that, how could we be sure that kids weren't getting it because they're getting it now? How is this working, that they're getting this stuff?
They're getting it from friends. I mean, recently we've been seeing nationally that there's been 7 deaths from vaping, and those are all been surrounded. I'm sorry, what's the number? 16. I was half right.
It's gone up.
So that's way too many. One's way too many. Where the news is reporting and the research I've been able to do is these are coming from friends, family, and illicit ways of getting it off of the street. They've all contained THC and they've all contained vitamin E. I don't know what all of the ramifications are of this, but I think that in light of the information that we have right now, that some action is necessary on this. Now, children are, I don't care what this legislative body does. Children are going to get it, but we need to do everything we can to try to prevent that. I think.
But the risk is decreased if it's unavailable.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, if it's not available, it makes it much more difficult. If it became banned in the city of Oroville, there would only be, and I think I'd have to ask Ms. Blankenship to help me with this, but I believe the map that she presented to me shows 3 locations near and around the city of Oroville where you could even potentially get these things. So it would be be very difficult to obtain in that manner unless somebody of age was giving it to you who is obtaining it somewhere else. Now, this is probably something that can be ordered off of Amazon and it can be shipped to your home. So we shouldn't, fool ourselves that it's just not going to be there because there'll still be ways.
But it would be made much more difficult.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I'm really glad to hear that we're concerned with what people are smoking here now. That's great. I love this conversation.
Some things are deadly and some are not.
I think any ingested gas is deadly. So, do we have any speakers from the audience?
Mr. Mayor, I have 15 public speakers, so the time will be limited to a minute and a half. Our first public speaker is Chloe Graham, and then Brianna Smith.
Hello, my name's Chloe Graham. I'm an Oroville resident, and the reason I care so strongly about this is because a lot of the people in my life that I have grown up with now are on these flavored tobacco devices. My cousin and other friends hit the vapes all the time. One of them was so strong to where my cousin blacked out in front of us. So when somebody drops like that in front of you, you don't know what thought is going on in your head. It's scary. You're scared. And so because he passed out from it, now that I know it was that, and it happened numerous times, so it's proof that it was the vape, I'm completely against these flavored tobaccos. But he picked it up at school from his friends and the people that are there, all the high school students. And then one day on his lunch break, he went to a store because he looks like an adult. He walked up into the store and he just purchased it. No ID, no nothing. And he's 16. Young people tend to vape more because they have family and friends who use their vapes all around them, or they believe e-cigarettes are better than cigarettes, but the truth is they're not. Again, we just ask that you consider that this ban for the youth of our Oroville.
Thank you.
Brianna Smith, and then Andrew Sproles.
Brianna. I am a resident of Oroville and I attend Las Plumas High. I'm speaking on behalf of Oroville youth and our community. My family has a long history of smoking tobacco, and ultimately it has led to illness for a lot of my family members. When vaping and flavored tobacco products first came out, it was being advertised as something that would help someone to quit smoking cigarettes. However, now the reverse effect came out. E-cigarette use among youth is now associated with increased risk for cigarette use. The designs and flavors of these products are targeted towards us and can be very addictive. I remember when I was only 7 years old, I used to think that vaping looked cool and I wanted to do it because I didn't know the dangers of vaping. I know many people at school who vape, and I'm worried for the safety of the youth in our Oroville. I ask that we please ban flavored tobacco. Thank you.
Andrew Sproles, and then Bobby Jones.
My name is Andrew. I live in Oroville and attend Las Plumas High School. I'm here to support the youth of Oroville and prevent them from addiction. My family has had history with tobacco and it has led them to illness and sometimes even death. And I'm here to prevent that from other people doing it. E-cigarettes emit at least 10 chemicals that are found on California's Proposition 65 list of chemicals known to cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. Some may say there are already laws in place that prevent youth from having access to tobacco products, such as the statewide law that increased the minimum sale age to 21 and local laws that prohibited tobacco sales near schools. However, public health threats are far-reaching and entrenched, as tobacco prevention requires using multiple approaches to save lives. I ask you to please ban flavored tobacco.
Bobby Jones, and then Bobby O'Reilly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. My name is Bobby Jones Sr. I am a community member here in Oroville. I stand here before you with the concern for our youth. The flavored tobacco industry is engaging in flavored tobacco products, which includes vaping products as well. These products, as we should all be aware, as you all spoken, being it has been in the news on a regular basis. the harms of these products, youth are heavily targeted by the tobacco industry through appealing flavored products, as the industry knows they must get youth addicted to their dangerous products in order to have lifelong customers. A 2014 study found that between 2011 and 2013, exposure to electronic smoking devices advertising on television increased by 321% among young adults, and 256% among youth. Studies also show that youth are 3 times more likely to be influenced by tobacco advertising than adults. Councilmember Draper, I love something that you mentioned about even if we restrict these, children are going to still have access to them. That is so true. But it is time for us as adults to protect our children. I'm on the ground working with these children, and to hear, I had my staff yesterday take a poll. There was 10 children, all probably under 13 years of age. He asked the question, how many of you guys know what vaping is? All these children raised their hand. This is going on in our elementary schools, our junior high. Where are we as adults going to protect our children?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, your time is up. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bobby O'Reilly and then Deanne Blankenship.
Good evening again, council. I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm not going to get the claps tonight. Excuse me. There's so much to say and not enough time. However, I am a 3-pack-a-day smoker. I started smoking at 17 years old, and I still smoke to this day. I do not condone smoking. I do not smoke with my children. I do not smoke in the house. I do not smoke in the car with my children. I do not wish the dirty habit upon anybody. However, I have the habit, and right now at this moment I'm stuck with it and I'm working on that problem. However, there are also studies that are coming out that are showing that the deaths involving vapes and the medical problems involving vapes had to do with cannabis and THC, not just flavored tobacco nicotine vaping. I don't think nicotine vaping is acceptable for children at all, but I do caution on the side of we do have our rights, and if we start taking away one right at a time, how many rights are we going to have left? We as adults should have the right to our legal products. Even, I mean, there's other laws in place that are preventing the children supposedly from getting them. My understanding is there are no smoke shops currently selling the products that have been recently busted. Some of them never busted for underage.
Deanne Blankenship and then Lindsay Freitas.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds and council members. My name is Deanne Blankenship. I'm with the local nonprofit California Health Collaborative. Since my young friends Chloe and Jonathan and I last presented to you, more California jurisdictions have passed similar policies that you're talking about tonight in an effort to protect youth. Just last week, Los Angeles County, with over 1 million residents and nearly 800 tobacco retailers, voted unanimously to ban the sale of all flavored tobacco products in the county. The tobacco industry adds sweet, fruity, and minty flavors to tobacco products because they need them to taste good, so young people will start to use them and then become lifelong customers. Without regulation, big tobacco will continue to flood the market with new products. Indeed, today you can find nicotine dissolvable strips that are like Listerine strips, nicotine orbs that look like Tic Tacs, and nicotine sticks that look like Bixie sticks, all designed to make nicotine products palatable to non-users. A ban on all flavored tobacco products will also prevent these types of new and emerging products from targeting Oroville youth, while adult tobacco users can still access non-flavored tobacco if they choose to use nicotine products. Thank you.
Lindsay Freitas and then Marissa Maxey.
Evening, I am Lindsay Freitas. I'm here on behalf of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and also representing the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. We commend Oroville for being a national leader in its commitment to reducing the death and disease from tobacco use, which still kills 480,000 Americans annually. Prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco products, including flavored chew and menthol cigarettes, in all tobacco retailers is a critical step that will help protect children living in Oroville from the unrelenting efforts of the tobacco industry to hook them to this deadly addiction. Flavored tobacco products are designed to alter the taste and reduce the harshness of tobacco so that they're more appealing for beginners, which are predominantly children. Nationally, 8 out of 10 current youth that use tobacco have used a flavored tobacco product in the past month. A government study found that 81% of kids who have ever used a tobacco product started with a flavored product, and across all tobacco products, the data is clear. Flavored tobacco products are overwhelmingly used by youth as a starter product, and the preference for flavor declines with age. Recently released data from the 2019 National Youth Tobacco Survey shows that youth e-cigarette epidemic continues to grow. Currently, 27.5% of high school students are current e-cigarette users, and that's a 135% increase from just 2 years ago. This is a really important policy, and we really...
Thank you.
Marissa Maxey, and then Shelley Brantley.
Hello, council members. I'm here today to express my support for a flavored tobacco ban in the city of Oroville as the mother of 2 teenage boys and an Oroville resident. Over 20 studies have shown a link between flavored tobacco products and youth initiation of tobacco use. This means that removing flavored tobacco products from our local stores will help prevent our children and our grandchildren, from becoming the next generation of nicotine addicts. A recent FDA report found that the most popular e-cigarette flavors for teenagers were fruit, mint or menthol, and candy, in that order. As a former smoker, I understand the willingness to try anything in order to quit. But I do think it's a stretch to say that adult smokers that are trying to switch from conventional cigarettes to e-cigarettes are purchasing products with flavor names like Unicorn Frappe, Rainbow Riot Squad, and Sour Worms. It is important to consider all flavored tobacco products for removal from stores because minty and menthol flavor additives also make tobacco more appealing to youth. As a parent, it worries me that my children are surrounded by peers using these highly addictive products. I want to give my full support to the California Health Collaborative in their efforts to protect Oroville youth by prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco products. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Shelley Brantley, and then Kimberly Bankston Lee.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Brantley, and I represent the Statewide Rural Coordinating Center, and I also am a proud member of the Nicotine Action Alliance for Butte County. I want to look at the issue you're considering tonight through another lens. The tobacco industry fights for every single customer. You would think they would focus their efforts only on the most populated areas. That's not the case. They want to keep every single addicted customer, including those in rural California. Here's the rub. Rural counties have some of the highest smoking rates in California, and rural residents start smoking at an earlier age. Residents in rural counties also suffer higher rates of lung cancer, and as we know, smoking causes 80 to 90% of those lung cancer cases. Couple the high cost of tobacco addiction with rural residents having poverty rates far higher than the national average, and that becomes a vicious cycle. Our community members who are least able to afford their nicotine addiction have the highest tobacco use rates. You have the opportunity to make addictive tobacco products less available for all members of our community.
Kimberly Bankston Lee, and then Steve Roderick.
And council members, my name is Kimberly Bankston Lee. I am from Saving Our Legacy, African Americans for Smoke-Free Safe Places. The sale and marketing of flavored tobacco and vape products towards kids, those living below poverty level, and communities of color is not only a public health issue, it's also a social and racial justice issue. Mentholated cigarettes and flavored little cigars, cigarillos, are cheaper and advertised more in low-income communities and Black communities than in white communities all around the state of California. Local jurisdictions are taking the lead to restrict these products by prohibiting the sales of flavored tobacco and vape products, limiting minimum package sizes, requiring minimum pricing, and prohibiting the discounting of these products. The Soul Project was instrumental in providing the City of Sacramento with resources and data that helped them to adopt a strong policy that prohibits these products. While Sacramento recognized that retailers are caught in the middle and offered help with transitions of their business plans, the city ultimate responsibility was to put students first by ending the sale of flavored tobacco and vape products. In jurisdictions like Yolo County and cities in Sonoma County, after a year and a half of these policies in place, no licensees have they've been repeating getting their license, and there have been no evidence of black markets. These are arguments from the tobacco industry. Thank you.
Steve Roderick, and then Ellen Michaels.
Good evening, council members. Steve Roderick, Oroville resident. Both my parents died of tobacco-related illnesses. My dad was introduced to tobacco in the South Pacific during World War II as a Marine, where the tobacco industry supplied free cigarettes in their sea rations. This not only hooked my dad, but an entire generation, the greatest generation, on tobacco when they came home. My generation, being the first to sit in front of a TV, were bombarded with TV ads from the Marlboro Man to Fred Flintstone, thereby hooking us, or many of us, not me, thankfully, on tobacco. When TV ads were banned, they went to billboards, print media, swag, giveaways, T-shirts. We all remember Joe Camel. They wanted to get another generation hooked on tobacco. Moving on to the great-grandchildren of the greatest generation, they're going to vaping. This is just cigarettes with batteries. They're doing everything they can to hook each subsequent generation on nicotine and tobacco. When the vaping products go away, or the fad ends, or they raise the prices, they'll go back to cigarettes. Please pass some version of an ordinance that gets rid of the vaping and the flavors. Thank you.
Ellen Michaels, and then Bruce Baldwin.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for addressing this important issue. My name is Ellen Michaels, and I am the project director for the Tobacco Education Program at Butte County Public Health. And I've been working in tobacco control for many, many years. And over the years, we've seen tobacco use, especially among youth, go down, down, down. So there's been a lot of progress made. And there's only one time that I can remember when it went up, and that was during the Joe Camel era, when the cartoon character was used to target youth. At that point in time, we saw youth smoking start to go up again. The only way that was stopped was through a legislated policy, the Master Settlement Agreement. When cartoon characters were banned for tobacco advertising, youth smoking started to go down again. Now it's flavored tobacco products that are targeting youth. And again, we've seen a dramatic increase in youth smoking. As a public employee, I can't lobby or ask you to vote one way or the other, but I do ask you to consider the history of the tobacco industry tactics as you address this issue. Thank you.
Bruce Baldwin, and then Megan Armstrong.
Thank you. I think you guys probably got the point, but last time we were here a couple weeks ago, Mr. Mayor, you asked about exploding e-cigarettes, and I wanted to follow up on that with you. It happens a lot more often than you hear about. Between 2015 and 2017, the U.S. Consumer Protection Agency investigated that issue, they found 2,035 cases of people being admitted to hospitals with burns or injuries that were caused by exploding e-cigarettes. Now, that's just people being admitted to the hospital. So imagine how many ended up in immediate care or just at home with bad burns. I mean, so this is happening somewhere every day in the United States. People are being injured, and sometimes more than just burned. I'll tell you the story about 24-year-old William Brown from Dallas, Texas, who died in January when his e-cigarette exploded in his mouth, severed his carotid artery. They had a stroke and died before they could get him to the hospital. He died in the parking lot of the vape shop. And I think that's an important point. For me, it is, as a former 3-pack-a-day smoker myself. I don't know of anyone who's ever died from lighting a cigarette 5 minutes after they bought a pack. This is happening right now, today. People are dying, and I think it's really important for us to do something about it. So thank you for listening.
Megan Armstrong, and then my last public speaker is Carnella Marks.
Good evening. My name is Megan Armstrong. I am one of 3 people who work for Butte County Public Health in the tobacco education program. You just heard from Ellen as well. Again, like Bruce said, there's not much more we could really say. So many people have hit on these points. But since we're talking a little bit about the health stuff, and we brought up the death toll as of today, due to vaping, it's 16 deaths and over 800 reported cases of lung injury. No, we don't know the exact cause yet. The CDC is looking into that and investigating it. Yes, people are reporting that they have used THC. Yes, they're reporting that they use nicotine. And yes, they reported that they have used both THC and nicotine products. There is no known cause. It is happening to people who have been vaping for years and people who have been vaping for a couple weeks. It could be anyone from their teenage years up into their 60s and 70s. This is not discriminating to one group of people. It is everyone. So I really thank you guys for taking swift action. You are the first in the county to be looking at this really heavily and doing something about it. You're not the only one, though. We're working in every single city. And Dr. Miller has alluded to the fact that when we need to go to the county level, we will go to the county level as well. So the stores that are on the outskirts of Oroville, we will be addressing those as well. So you're not alone. Thank you.
Our last public speaker on this item, Carnella Marks.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, also council members. I am Carnella Marks, a resident of this community. I support prohibiting flavored tobacco, just as I support Javier Pacero's recent lawsuit filed against the Trump administration for revoking the authority to limit car pollution. E-cigarettes is just another form of pollution. Stanton Glanton at the Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education performed a study on e-cigarettes. They found e-cigarette pollutes the air with nicotine and fine particles. Each person sitting on the city council took a note to serve the city and the people of this city. Vote to prohibit sales of e-cigarettes for the safety of our children who are being exposed to this flavored poison. Thank you.
Say one thing? I didn't sign up for anything. If I say that.
Will you step up here, please?
So my parents both are 80 years old, and they're both dying from lung cancer, and they're both on oxygen. And I'm telling you right now, buddy, if you saw them, you're a young man, I swear to God, you should quit and tell all your friends to quit because it's horrible to watch. So they've been, for years, we watch the billboards, TV programs, everybody's advertising this stuff. My mom used to tell smoke because it's better for your health. Menthol is great for you. It makes you feel better. But we got to stop the advertising. We just let people advertise anything they want. And so something, I don't know the answer because I know we have a free market. I get that. So it's just hard to say don't do that. But something's got to be done. It just can't be thrown out the window because watching people suffer. And the tobacco company, they're evil. They don't care about you. They don't care about nobody in this room at all. They care about how much money they make. And customers, that's all they care about. So that's all I gotta say, and hopefully something gets done out of this and just doesn't get thrown out the window and quit smoking, buddy.
Sir, could I just get you to, sir? John what?
CA.
Well, on this item, we're looking to give staff direction. Well, it looks like we have some comments from the dais. Councilmember Draper? Councilmember Smith?
Well, after hearing from the public, and I think just my own comment to this, the most offensive piece is the fact that they've targeted the kids. And that's pretty clear as I read through all the documentation that's been provided us with, the candy and, the packaging and all. It's pretty clear what's going on here. And I find that personally offensive. That to reinvigorate their industry, that they deliberately targeted kids. And I think there's a price to pay for that. And we all know, the research is out. We know the impact that smoking has on, our grandparents, our parents, and even some people that I grew up with. But then we saw the decline, right, of cigarette smoking up until recently. And this is a way to reinvigorate that industry to the peril, really, of a whole new generation up and coming. I think we owe them the knowledge and the experience that's in this room here, all of you that you brought here this evening. And so I want to recommend that we go with the heavier-handed, like Sacramento, which is the prohibiting the sale of all flavored tobacco products within the city limits, and to direct staff to bring this back to the Planning Commission. The second piece, which is, I think, the more stronger ordinance. And then if the tobacco industry feels that we're going over the top, and they can come in here and talk to us and convince us why we shouldn't go that route, and let them stand before our community and articulate their rationale. So that's how I see it.
Councilmember Pittman?
Thank you, Mayor. I certainly support the ban, and as Councilman Smith said, I'm certainly in support of that idea. I might ask a question, though. As we would apply the ban to this description of product, would the ban also have something to say about the public areas that we don't allow smoking? Example, certain places like, I know in public housing, there's no smoking allowed, period. Would the ordinance also restrict where this vaping could occur, even though we have a ban on it? And I understand a ban doesn't eliminate it. Could we ban, example, vaping at school sites, those kind of things? That's the question I have.
I'm not sure you can vape at school. I'm not sure you're supposed to. I think it probably occurs. These are separate issues. We are talking about the sale of a product and zoning. This would be a separate issue that we'd have to bring back under a different ordinance if the council wanted to try to set up non-smoking areas throughout the city.
I just know that I don't want to miss the fact if you say it's banned as a tobacco item, and because vaping doesn't have tobacco in it, I want to have the same restrictions. I know many businesses cannot have someone smoking within 25 feet of the front door. That's where I'm kind of coming from, that I'm totally in favor of the ban, but I'm also, can we not allow that to be exposed to our public?
What we'll do on that is I will get with our planning staff and see what we have that is in our code currently, what labor laws exist right now as far as doorways and smoking. I'll also check and our education code to see if any smoking is allowed on campuses. We'll look into all that. We'll bring that back in as a separate report to the council.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is just about tobacco. There's because they vape a lot of different things in the vaping devices. What are we doing about the vaping devices themselves? And what about possession of said items? This is just for the sale. This isn't anything to do with possession of it?
A child in possession of some sort of a smoking product like that, I'm reaching way back, but I think is it 308B, Chief Dill? Chief Dill, if I could interrupt you. Is it 308B of the penal code for possession of tobacco or tobacco products by someone under the age of 18, 20?
I believe it's 21.
Okay.
Okay, this is.
So
this-
it's already contained in the penal code.
This is to
This is not going to affect that.
prohibit the sale of tobacco products. What
Correct.
about vaping products? That's,
Yes, I
it's-
believe
it
we already
doesn't say
have
that
that.
here.
I think what we have right now is a restriction on the vaping products to smoke shops. We have if you go with the full restriction or the full prohibition, this will prohibit the sale, including the e-cigarettes.
Okay, Councilmember Draper's in the queue.
Well, as someone who grew up with a couple of parents who smoked for many years, and my father started smoking when he was in the Navy during World War II, and they were, like one gentleman said, they were given cigarettes in their ration kits. And thankfully, my father quit when he was in his 40s, so he lived to be about 96 years old. But a lot of people are not that lucky. And because of their example, my two brothers and I never smoked because we saw how bad it was and how hooked they were on it. And so I'm for a complete ban on the flavored products and the vaping equipment, all of it, because it's clear they're targeting children under the age of 18, and they are not able to make wise choices yet. And they rely on adults to do the right thing here. So I'm for that.
I remember our first woman mayor, Susan Sears, and her first thing she did was ban smoking in restaurants in the city of Oroville, and she was recalled immediately. So that's how popular smoking was then. But I think we're living in a different time now. And I would just like to commend everyone for coming a long way. Mr. O'Reilly, I feel you. I never have smoked, but I used to tease my mom about, I said, I probably can't run very fast because you smoked when you were pregnant. She said, oh, be quiet, everybody did. So that was the times. That was the time. My mother was the most wonderful person on this earth, but that was the mindset. And this is how we change the mindset. Somebody has to say no. Councilmember Goodson.
I just want to state for the record that I am in agreement with Councilwoman Draper, Councilman Smith, and in regards to the prohibiting of the sale of all flavored tobacco products and devices as well within the confines of the city limits.
Are there any other comments from the dais? Since there are no other comments, I think the consensus is that we are directing you, Mr. Legron, to move forward to the Planning Commission on October 24th with the prohibition of flavored tobacco products in the city limits of Oroville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We will proceed with that.
Moving on to item number 7.
Mr. Mayor, before Chief Dill starts on that, I would like to just cover a couple points on this.
Excuse me, if there are a lot of people leaving after that item, then we're going to go ahead and let them clear the council chambers so we can.
I just want to thank you to Mrs. Blankenship for your leadership on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Chief, believe we're ready.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to just cover a couple things real quickly on this. This item tonight is an item that we are looking for. You can look at it kind of like a smorgasbord. There's a lot of items in here. What we're looking for tonight specifically, and the chief's going to cover all of those, and he was tasked with a lot of things to bring those. We're looking for direction as to what you would like. Once you formulate what you would like, we will work on the final cost and that. We will bring that back at the next council meeting as a consent item, as an agreed upon item with, we're going to need council approval for the final implementation of that. So as we move through these items tonight, we would like your input and direction on what you would like to see, at what level you'd like to see it, and what direction we go from there. The item is quite extensive. It's like with any item or any plan, there will be flaws that you point out in it that we need to look at many levels. Please be patient. Chief Dill was tasked with putting a lot of things together here. This includes many of those ideas that came from council previously. This is just a part of the solution or part of an answer to an epidemic that is facing all of the United States with people that are unhoused. Not just them, but also people that are committing low-level crimes. So we will be coming back in a meeting in November also with another element of this, because I believe we also have to have a discussion at the council regarding housing. What do we do and where do we go from here? So this is just one element. I want to caution everybody that this is not a solution. This is not going to fix all the problems. It's just going to help and try to keep the problem from getting worse and provide solutions to those that are looking for solutions.
Thank you. I think that covers it. So as the days and weeks and months led up to me coming into this position, I sat in here and I listened and I heard a lot of concerns from not only the community at this podium, but also yourselves at the dais. And a lot of those, or some of those, were taken into consideration. And then when I took the seat in this position, I got a number of phone calls, visits at the police department, ran into in town, and it was, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? So a lot of that was taken into consideration as we moved through this. And I sat and realized that a lot of the concerns from both sides of this podium I've heard all relate to quality of life, or majority relate to quality of life type issues. And that's when it was basically determined that there's a quality of life concern in the city of Oroville. I put the PowerPoint presentation together. It's going to pretty much cover most of what's in the very extensive staff report in front of you. Some of the minute details are in the paperwork in front of you, or for those in the audience that downloaded the paperwork can see those things as well. But the city, that's really small. Good thing I'm not going to try to read from it. Okay, the city's experiencing a rise in negative quality of life issues. What are those things? There are just a few that I was able to put on the screen. Loitering and panhandling, aggressive panhandling. If somebody goes to the gas station and gets gas and feels as if they're being accosted, that lowers their quality of life. They don't want to go to that gas station next time. Trespassing, obviously that works in the homes, that works in the businesses in downtown, that works in northeast, southwest Oroville. It's all over. There's trespassing all over. Neighborhood speeding's up there because, believe it or not, that was some of the questions I got. What are you going to do about the speeders in the neighborhood? Quality of life issue. Prowling, theft, vandalism, public urination, defecation. Any of our downtown business owners can probably talk about some of those things as well. A common belief in this is that it's homelessness, when in all reality, there are a number of quality of life crimes that have nothing to do with homelessness or anybody that is homeless. There are things that have happened over the course of the years that have taken our normal or our past practices away when it comes to enforcement, and some of those are AB 109, Prop 47. I'm not going to get into what both of those are right now. I'm just letting you know that conventional measures might have been reduced because of those issues as we go through. It certainly was a case. It's an extensive staff report. A lot of the stuff is factual, and then like Bill LaGrone said, it's just some ideas. I don't think that we're going to be able to sit here in the short amount of time that I'm going to talk and come up with the answers, but these are suggestions. I encourage the conversation between yourselves and me to figure out what the best thing is to go. But some of the facts, we say approximately 1,000. These stats that I'm going to talk about on this slide are all fiscal year 18-19 statistics from the fiscal year. We talk about 1,000 police hours responding to and handling calls for service and these types of issues. That doesn't account to the writing of the report, the logging of evidence, the documentation of evidence, the transport and bookings into the jail, or anything aftermath. That is approximately 1,000 hours of police time spent on responding to and handling the issue at hand. Now, with most calls for service, I mean, you can look at that and see 1,000 police hours. That's only half a year, 2,080 hours, work hours in a year if you work 40 hours a week. But most of these calls and most of these crimes require 2 officers to go to it. Everybody, or majority of the people in the room know that that's a police sergeant and 2 officers. That is our staff at any time, day or night, at the police department. So now you've taken the entire staff to deal with these issues. So you look at it on face value and see 1,000 hours, oh, big deal, that's half a year. No, it's actually the whole year almost when you think about it when it comes to hours spent. The dispatch has to be factored into this too. They have to spend time to dispatch the call. Not only dispatch the call, take the call from the person who's calling, figure out what we're going to do, assign the call to an officer, handle the phone call, and now dispatch the officer there, talk to them while they're there, and then close the call out when it's over. So we average about $20,000 alone just spent from the dispatch center when it comes to that. Again, these are averages fiscal year 18-19. We have municipal law enforcement officers to take a lot of the load off of the sworn police officer. 700 hours approximately of MLE time during that fiscal year was spent just patrolling parks. It's very common for an MLE to start their shift and go around the businesses and try to clean the area up. If there's anybody sleeping in those areas, kind of move them along, contact them, and do things of that nature. But they also deal with their loitering calls, the trespassing calls, abandoned vehicle type calls, and so on. A lot of hours were spent just by the MLE. A lot of days, we don't have a municipal law enforcement officer on duty just because the way the schedule laid out, and now those hours go on the sworn police officer as well on those days. Oroville Fire Department, you got to figure them into this factor too. So they've expended a number of resources on these types of instances as well. Those, when it comes to the types of calls that I queried, largely relate to warming fires. That's just the way it is. The fire department, when a warming fire is out there or illegal burn, whether it's an outdoor cook or whether it's a warming fire, it requires a fire department's response. In that response is a fire engine. Okay, so during high staff level, that might be 2 engines. So now it's taking that engine away from other emergencies in the city. Parks and Trees Department, they are considered in this as well. They spent over $25,000 in that fiscal year 18-19 just to repair vandalized restrooms and drinking fountains. Now we want the restrooms open. We want the drinking fountains accessible, but we want them to be serviceable when somebody needs to use them. So the park spent a lot of hours retrieving shopping carts as well. I'll get into shopping carts a little bit later in the presentation, but I wanted to throw that out there on the facts up there. A lot of times people don't realize that the shopping carts are discarded in the culverts and the drainage ditches. Now when the winter rains come, we've got to clear those out. Somebody has to go do that. We'll talk about shopping carts more in a moment. So we go right into possible solutions. Now these possible solutions, again, it's not the answer. It may not even be a answer, but it's an idea. It's an idea that we bring forward. Where these ideas come from is just years of doing the job and seeing things in other towns and other communities that have worked to a degree. Now I know the print's real small if you're trying to read it, but in that box is actually in your staff report almost verbatim. And if we were to implement a problem-oriented policing team, which is what is part of the proposal here, it would allow those expended resources that I spoke of on the previous slide to return to their duties, that their normal everyday duties, while the problem-oriented policing team would spend 40 hours a week addressing quality of life issues. Now, it doesn't have to be everybody's going to jump to homelessness. That's not what this is about. Is it a component? Absolutely, but it's not the component. I could give a number of examples. If there was a vehicle theft ring somewhere in Oroville, I would direct the POP team to go to where those vehicles are being stolen and try to solve the quote-unquote problem. if there's anything that we hear, whether it's in this room or it's at the police department that's problem-oriented, now I have a group of police officers, or whatever fashion we make this team, that can be focused on addressing the problems. They don't have to take the calls for service every day. That's going to be the officers that stay on the street. Now, it would be very important for a POP team to partner with local nonprofit organizations. We have a number of them here in our community. I have put a couple of their logos up there. You probably recognize them, but it's not all inclusive just to those. We have to have an understanding of what's going on in the community, and with our local nonprofits is where that understanding might come. So I would want them to partner with each of our nonprofits in the community. Also, Catalyst and behavioral health. A very strong component to any problem-oriented policing team is a behavioral health component. They can offer services. So I know I'm going fairly quick, but you've got most of the information in front of you. And I think a POP team. So how would a POP team look in this case? A POP team would look, I've demonstrated on this slide now. I didn't have this big of a screen at my house when I made this, but those letters were a lot bigger on my computer. So I apologize to the audience that's trying to read it. But let me just tell you what it says. It outlines, if you look on page 2 of your report, you're going to see a chart that I put in there. That chart's going to talk about positions, and it's going to talk about estimated dollars. Let's talk about that for a moment before we talk about what the positions are going to do. Those dollar amounts are salary and benefits. It is not salary only. So when you look at that and you see $125,000 for a sergeant, the sergeant's not going to make that. He or she would make what the normal salary range would be. How did I come up with those numbers? I took the lowest level and the highest level, the entry level and the top level, and I averaged them because I don't know who these people are going to be at this point. So I wanted to give an average. I added the salary and benefits so that you got an accurate depiction of what any type of dollars spent on this might be. The police sergeant's job would be to supervise the team. That's what the job is. They would coordinate the supervision and the contact with the local nonprofits. The police officers in there would do the day-to-day operations, and they would address the concerns within the city. You'll see a fire prevention officer. It's merely because I spoke about some of the issues they were having. A fire prevention officer position, if permitted, would actually be twofold. They would not be committed to the team. They would work within the fire department, and they would supplement the team if the team were to come across warming fires, things of that nature. That person could come out, and if a citation is warranted or anything of that nature, they can take care of that, or just give more community outreach so that these folks are not violating those crimes in the future. You'll see an MLE, municipal law enforcement officer. That position would be in charge or be responsible for transportation, cleanup, and community outreach during that time. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. If I were to build this team, I would make that position a sworn position, which therefore they would be armed. Yes, they would be sworn. They would have arrest powers, and they would be able to do the citations that we would need to if that were to be the direction I was given.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's just, I know that's a real busy slide, but that's what it says. Sorry about the fine print. I'll get a bigger TV when I do these next time. So with a POP team, there's additional keys to success that we need to address. So I'll refer to this as a Highway to Home program. I got to thank Councilor Draper for the Bend Cares program, the pamphlet you handed out. I did read that. I looked at it. I considered that program, and this is where I've kind of come up with this. The city currently was having a program through the Hope Center that was called Home for the Holidays. And what that program did is it would provide transportation to unhoused individuals that needed to get back to family or wanted to go home for the holidays. You're very familiar with the Bend Cares program. The combination of these two, well, if I can just back up a moment about Home for the Holidays. That program's been proven to work. Over the course of 2 years, I believe there might be some in the audience that may speak later to this, but that program, over the 2 years that it was active in the city, I believe they provided transportation to 34 individuals, and their return rate was less than 2. I believe one person returned to the city of Oroville. The other folks did not return. They went home to where they were going to go, and then that's where they stayed. Highway to Home program, a little bit, what I would like to see happen, and that would be to expand that program some. That program would not be home for the holidays. It would be able to be used year-round at any time. It would provide transportation and transportation only. There would be strict guidelines on this. This wouldn't be just a free-for-all, hey, I want a ticket home, I want a ticket to this town, I want a ticket back home after I've been home on leave. It's none of that. There's got to be strict guidelines. There's got to be somebody that's receiving this person, a family member. That's the idea, is to get back with family or their home of record. So I would want our POP team, if that were a thing, to have contact with where this person was going. Tell me who your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle is that you're going. Let's call them and let's get them on their way home. Transportation only. It's a plane, train, automobile, whatever it might be, bus ticket to where they're going, one way. Donation funded. I would ask that staff be given direction to work with the IT department to put a donation portal on the city website where the community, if they so desire, to donate to that program. Those funds would then be used for this program only. If they find it in their heart to drive and give money to the person that's asking for money on the side of the road, then maybe they could give to this program and we can ensure it's going to be used for those issues. Donation funded reunification. It promotes reunification with family members. So yes, it's not one specific Bend Cares. It's not one specific home for the holidays. It's a combination that came up with. Now, the reason I reference Home for the Holidays is because the Hope Center has a program established right now. If there was another nonprofit organization within the community that were to establish a program, I would certainly support another donation portal on the city's website where the donator can decide where they want to donate the money to, which organization they would like to donate the money to, with the understanding that it's going to be for this program, this type of program. Again, jumping back to the POP team, they would have to work with the nonprofit organizations to maybe get names or contact with the people that would fit into this program. Doesn't have to be one nonprofits group. It could be anyone. If it doesn't have to be that. We had an incident a couple days ago where we ran into a young lady, single mother with children, was here for some unfortunate circumstances, had family in Southern California. We didn't have, this program wasn't there. I mean, yes, Home for the Holidays is there, but this wasn't established. Perfect candidate where I could put her and this person, 4 young children, on a bus down to Southern California where her family was. So it's just an example of what we can do. Again, just a discussion that we're having, possible keys to success. Shopping cart ordinance, it's mentioned in the staff report. I said we would speak a little bit more about it. This is something that I would like to work with the planning department, community development on working on. Now, I understand there is currently one already. There is, I believe, in the Oroville City Code, there is a section that talks about shopping cart ordinance. There is an ordinance reference. It's 1727. That ordinance talks about this, but it doesn't expand as far as I would like to see it expand. I would like direction to be able to fine-tune that ordinance, if you will. Right now, it talks about if you do this, this can happen, but it doesn't say that this is going to happen. And what I'm talking about this is, and you can read the ordinance later, but what I would like to see is more of a two-prong approach where your national level chains would have to have a locking shopping cart. That's very similar to Walmart, Ross within the city. You can go there, you can see that those shopping carts either cannot leave the business or they cannot leave the property. Now, we have a number of smaller family-owned businesses that might only have a small amount of shopping carts. I don't think they should have to have that program there, but maybe there could be, for example, some cost recovery if their shopping carts are found out in the community so that they can get them back. The shopping cart problem is real. It was about 3 council meetings ago, a gentleman stood up here. If he's watching now, I heard him. He goes to the store and he doesn't have shopping carts. This would be for retail businesses. There would be locking carts or something similar. I believe the Dollar Trees, you can't get the shopping cart out of the store. Okay, it's not a locking shopping cart, but you can't get it out because of the big pole. You would have happy customers because they have shopping carts when they come there, and it would aid in city cleanliness because there wouldn't be an abundance of shopping carts around the community. If nobody believes there's shopping carts, I just encourage them to take a drive through town, and they will see that there's abandoned shopping carts. Somebody has to pick them up. City Works. So again, established program. When I put this together, I reached out to established programs on how we might be able to make them better. Now, again, it's just a discussion. I'm open to the discussion at the end, how we can make this best for us. But what I'm talking about here is a City Works program. It is through the Hope Center. There's a dollar amount that we fund for weed abatement. This was, if I'm not mistaken, this was a program that was implemented a couple years ago. It works. It's proven to work. We have funded that program. They are, in the past, it's been homeless people that are unhoused that are part of the Hope Center that get put to work. They get paid for their work. And they do good work. They have done good work. They primarily have done weed abatement on city properties, but they've also painted my parking lot. They've done other things. But the problem with the program right now is that it's only funded for a portion of the year. So I think that limits both the city and the program. It limits the city because we run out of money and then the work stops. It affects the program because what we're trying to do here is have stability for these folks that are getting off the street, working, and then into housing. If that ends, then they are very, very, very likely subjected to going back on the streets, and then we've just worked backwards with the program. It's a lot easier to get a job when you already have one, and if this is the case, they have one. With this, it provides jobs. It reduces fire hazard in the city because they're abating the weeds that there's weed problem in the city properties. It provides stability, and again, it aids towards city cleanliness because we're cleaning up the areas. If we were to fund the program for more time, then that would extend into the winter months, and we might be able to use them to clean those culverts, work with the Parks and Trees Department, and things of that nature, and use them year-round. The last square up there is working together to make a difference. So this is where I'm talking about if we're going to make this work, and we're going to have a POP team, a problem-oriented policing team, and we're going to have a highway to home program or a shopping cart ordinance or anything in the City Works, if we don't work together, it will fail. Everybody has to be on the same page, and I say everybody, I've listed a few: Haven of Hope, Rescue Mission, the Hope Center, the Butte County Homeless Coalition. I ran out of room. I could go on. I could name others. And then the city departments as well, your Parks and Trees, your Public Works, your code enforcement, things like that. The POP team would have to be a part of that because somebody has to facilitate it all and direct it all. So the possible key to success on there is working together to make a difference. So it brings us to recommendations. Like I said, I know I zipped through it. A lot of it is more detailed in your staff report in front of you. But some of the recommendations, it could be a variation of them. I'm certainly here to take direction. Number one on there, and in no specific order, is to authorize the funds for a POP team and associated vehicles. We can certainly talk about costs, where that comes from later, but I gotta know if the council's interested in something like that, and then we can talk about what their details would be. Authorize funds to increase staffing within the City Works program year-round, or something similar if that's what we're going to do. I do think it's very advantageous for the city to have a year-round program if feasible. It would allow a lot more work to be done and work that's been proven to be effective. Provide staff with direction on creating shopping cart ordinance. Again, I understand there already is one, but I would like to fine tune it and maybe make it more applicable. I don't know the date of that ordinance, but I do know that the things that are detailed in there that are supposed to happen aren't happening. And I do know that that ordinance is not working. So let's fix it. Provide staff direction on a highway to home program to include a donation portal on the city website. Again, I would stress that if there's any other nonprofit organization that is interested in some similar program like that, I would certainly ask to be able to put that organization's donation portal on the city website, where when a click on that would take them to the donation portal for that organization, and they would donate their money, because if they're going to donate their money, I believe they should have the choice on where they donate it. That takes me to the end of that. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has for me on it.
Looks like they have a few. Were you a marketing major?
No, I was a military policeman in the Army.
That was a great job,
Thank
Chief. Councilmember Smith?
And that's why I stood up, because I do love marketing. That's kind of what I do over on the other side of the parking lot.
I may have had a little help with that presentation, but her name shall remain nameless.
And I was very impressed. I love how you incorporated all of the various agencies, their logos. It was brilliantly executed.
Thank you.
But what I love most about it was your passion. And this brings back the old-fashioned idea of protecting and serving our community. And if we can fund every idea that you just brought forward, man, I'm all in, because I think that because your passion, you obviously believe in what you just shared and talked about here. You did your homework. You've taken all the ideas from all of us, and we have different ideas. Linda has different ideas than I do, and so on and so forth. But we're able to incorporate all of that into a cohesive package. And I'm like, man, when can we start?
I wish it was that easy, sir.
But so I just love it. I love all the ideas, and I do like, and you present it again. These are ideas, and they need fine tuned and honed. But I just so appreciate a chief of police that it's just more about locking them up, putting them in handcuffs. Because obviously, that maybe that worked. And we were talking about different times and eras and how we've changed as a community and society, and so you're right along with that. So I so much appreciate it. I just wanted to offer that those comments and appreciation. And I guess then we're going to batten around about how do we fund it, how do we do that, where do we get the funding, Measure U money, do we send this back to the Measure U oversight committee for some input? I mean, and I'm just kind of
sure.
Or, bloviating here for the moment and kicking this out for everyone to just kind of jump in on this. I'm sure we all have our opinions, but good job. Awesome. Thank
sir.
you.
You're welcome.
I would have to concur with Councilmember Smith. The last police chief was a tyrant.
Well, like I started, there was a number of people that came. I never knew so many people had access to the police department that I was busy doing my things.
sir.
And next thing I know, they're sitting at my desk and I really don't even know who they are. And they want to know what I'm going to do about this or that. And I really took a chance.
I feel you.
I bet. I really took a chance at telling them, give me some time. They didn't want to hear, give me some time. So this was the first time I had a chance to say, here are some ideas and just see if we can move forward.
Sure. Vice Mayor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Chief Deal.
You're welcome, sir.
I also commend you on a great presentation. A couple things I just want to bring up in here. As far as the specific addressing the issues, you mentioned 6 items that were primary complaints from citizens: loitering, trespassing, speeding, prowling, theft, vandalism, urination, defecation, and properties. So with that list, just to let you know off the get-go, with this, as we move forward, I agree with all those, absolutely. Those are issues that are not new to our city, but the citizens stepped forward this last election cycle and voted in favor of putting some resources behind addressing some of these issues right here that you've listed. With that, however, the area that I think I'll have the most question for, or the most hesitancy necessarily to throw money at, in my opinion, this first step, because I know that, as we've all stated, this is not an end-all, but a part of the solution. With that, just so that we're not getting off in bunny trails, the fire aspect of this program, I'm a little more hesitant on it, because specifically the main items that we're trying to address out of the gate are, loitering,
Sure.
trespassing, speeding, prowling, theft, vandalism, urination, defecation. So none of those are specifically in relationship to fire. So I would like to aim specifically at those. One thing I love that you said, and I agree with, this is a problem-oriented policing. This is not homeless-oriented policing.
No.
So, it's just kind of funny that we're talking about this, because as you know, property that I manage was vandalized last night, and I appreciate the response time from OPD, because today he was apprehended thanks to security cameras that we have up, and had a very good visual of the person. This person, from my understanding, it just didn't look like a homeless person, so I don't know.
He is not.
Yeah, so.
He was
it's not-
arrested at his home.
Right. So the issues that we're facing with the city, with loitering and all the things that are going on, they aren't just limited only to homeless, so it's problem-oriented policing. So I appreciate that. I have one question regarding, because of the POP team, police, problem-oriented policing, they are going to be relieving some pressure that our current police force is spending a lot of time addressing. Is it potential that this police force will actually help save in overtime, since our police officers will be freed to do what, to deal with the day-to-day stuff, and the POP team will be facing the other things that often would take up a lot of their time?
So I'm reaching over there. So essentially, the overtime, we don't necessarily spend overtime for the things that the problem-oriented policing team would do. However, we have almost got our staffing level back to where we would reduce our overtime merely because our staffing level is back where it is supposed to be. We do have a high expenditure of overtime. The POP team would not work on overtime.
Right.
And
No, that's what I'm saying, is that they would, because they're relieving pressure that the current police force is tackling, that the current, our officers wouldn't have to handle as much overtime, since the POP team is an addition to, it's not functioning on overtime, I understand that, but they're.
I don't.
Let me jump in, Chief Deal. I think what the answer to that, Vice Mayor Thompson, is no. There'll be no mixing of the two, because what will happen traditionally if you start doing that is the next thing you know, your POP team is filling shifts, other people are off. There will be this is not going to alleviate the amount of work. Right now, you have a reactive police force that reacts to situations as they arise. The POP team will be a proactive one that specifically goes out and targets a specific problem and deals with that problem. So there'll be no reduction in overtime.
Okay, so maybe my question isn't
I understood you.
clear.
I still think the answer is no, though.
Okay.
I think the only way we're going to get rid of overtime is by hiring more cops.
Gotcha, because I'm not asking, will our current officers be spending overtime to work on the POP team?
No, the POP.
I understood your question.
They're taking some load off of our officers, adding a different team so that they can. Still not clear?
No, it's clear. It's the POP officers are, if they were hired, are not going to alleviate the regular day-to-day duties of the police officers. They will still be doing everything that they're still doing. We will not be using these POP officers to fill empty shifts. Once you start that, you've just eliminated your program, because it just slips down that slope.
So if I could just,
if I could
understand.
say something, Doug. You had mentioned that officers are picking up shopping carts and doing all these things, and now this new group, this Pop Rocks or Pop Shop is going to do that. So what I think Vice Mayor Thompson is
Trying
saying.
to communicate.
If I can answer that, I fully understand the question. I understand what you're saying, and I think the best way to put it is a POP team would it may reduce the officers working the streets workload, but it will not reduce overtime. Our overtime expenditures are when a police officer's not there. We fill it with an overtime person. The only way we're going to reduce that is when we hire cops that fill those holes. The other overtime expenditures, when our police officers take vacations, then we fill them with overtime.
Got it.
The POP team will not affect the overtime.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah.
Gave all of us the opportunity.
Absolutely. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. Especially with a holiday, people going on vacation or sick, you need to have somebody filling the spot.
Sure.
That has nothing to do with shopping carts.
Right.
I got that. One thing I do want to mention, though, just kind of as a comment, that the citizens of Oroville voted in favor of our tax measure, sales tax measure, specifically because of, in my opinion, from what I've heard from constituents, is these issues. And so as a city council, I think it's our responsibility to deliver at least a beginning solution. to address these issues. And I know that the fear is that we're spending our sales tax money before it comes in, or we don't have it, or we're all this kind of stuff. But this item, in my opinion, is specifically why many citizens voted in favor of the sales tax measure. And so as a city council, I think it's imperative that we move something forward to address these issues. And I appreciate, again,
Thank you.
your presentation. I do want to point out that a lot of other cities have already done this and found a lot of success. And I'm sure you can mention them because I'm sure you understand them more than I do. But I think it's important that we see something that works and it's working. And last thing is direction. The other items that you need direction on, I'm in favor of. We just need to see the figures come back for. And regarding the home, I'm sorry, that's donation, the shopping cart, and the City Works program. So great presentation. Thank you.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. Well, great idea. Just total. It's just simple that. Great idea. I can support just about the entire thing, and I can give a couple examples as we had a group tonight here, Cottonwood Estates. I have a suspicion that where on the other side in that drainage, they have a population of folks that are habitating in there. Consequently, that's why that mobile home park is being ravaged, because those folks are there. And I know I could say that to one of your officers and make go down and look, but I think the only way you're going to solve that is a team. And what you suggest here is a good idea to go down there, because it's not going to be just one person or two people. I've talked to the business owners down there, and they, one business owner put lights up so they could see their vehicles when they leave late at night, when they're working late. And they went up and they said, well, what happened to those lights? They're not working anymore. They found that that population went up on the roof and adjusted the lights to be out in the broad area so they could see what they're doing at their home sites out in the brush. So it gets a little ridiculous, but at the same time, it's going to take time and effort to deal with that population. I would add in the fire category, a good example was last night, you had a structure burned out, occupant in there. And then we typically suppress the fire, and then we walk away and we look at that sucker for months, if not years. And I think the amount of burned out structures we have in this community are in the tens, maybe even in the 50s. And I think that person in your fire prevention team member should be focused on getting rid of those burned out structures. That to me is a quality of life issue. And I know from my experience, every structure is different. It has to be addressed, from how much was destroyed to the owner, to the vacant owner, to the whoever has some title on it. It takes time and effort to get rid of those things. And I would love to see those structures gone in 30 days or less. Sure. And if that would be a goal, I think that's a great one to add to the team as an effort, because most of these structures that are left are people problems. They really are. And people problems are dealt with by law enforcement and a mixture of the team. I have to add that some years ago, we had what we call the RAT team. Yeah. And when we had a problem apartment house, everybody went there on the same date and time. They started at 10 o'clock. We had code enforcement, health officer, fire, police, everybody. And this is kind of the same idea. So I really like the idea, but it's not just that. It's going to look at that population that's causing us problems in the community, and for not just our quality of life, but also for our business operators. There's nothing worse than a business operator walk out and say, hey, move away from my front door. And then the next morning he finds out the windows are broken out of his place. And that happens more than we like. So I'm in support of that. I'd suggest maybe on the quality of life that the fire personnel be kind of tasked to get rid of the burned out structures. Like today, or there was one last night. Letters need to be written today. Follow-up needs to occur real quick. And I'm not faulting code enforcement. Code enforcement has, last time I checked, 700 or 800 open, what do they call them when you open a cases? 700 or 800 cases. And when the quantity of code enforcement people we got, they got enough problem taking care of just that, let alone the fire burnout. So I see this as a great way to address the fire burnouts too. So I would add that to to the program. I've got no problem with the numbers that are here. I think this is, as the Vice Mayor said, this is an appropriate thing that the public's looking for. And for better or worse, we got to try it. So I'm in support.
Thank you.
Councilmember Draper.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I'm very much in favor of this program. And to me, this is a natural fit for Measure Our Money. And this is exactly what people voted for with that. I'm sorry, did someone say something?
I knew what you, I knew what you
Measure
meant. I knew what you meant.
And I thought, what did I miss here? Thank you, I stand corrected. So the other thing is on the website, with the donation buttons that you've mentioned, I would like to see all nonprofits in the community have a spot on there where they could receive donations for their services to homeless people and low-income people. And the other thing is the shopping cart issue is huge in Oroville. And I forwarded an email to Bill Lagrone a couple of weeks ago from Jess Howard, a businessman here who has a business on Lincoln Boulevard. And he and the other business owners have had really a lot of challenges with shopping carts being left in their area and all kinds of things. So I think that the shopping cart idea is long overdue, and I applaud you for adding that to this. The other thing is on the City Works program, I'd like to see that expanded to not just the Hope Center, but the Haven of Hope Resource Center that will be functioning. They have been doing cleanups for years, even before the city annexed that area. And I think that we would benefit from having a couple of nonprofits with work for homeless individuals. But thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
You and I had a chance to talk very lengthy over the weekend about pros and cons and just going through each component of this. And I'm certainly in favor. But as you were presenting it this evening, I was thinking of a gentleman. I think that we've all come across him. His name was Henry with the full beard.
Mm-hmm.
He had two dogs, I believe, Blade and Slade. And one Sunday, he happened to show up on the doorsteps of our church. He said, "I have found my sister. Could you please call her? Here is the number." And so my husband and I, we were able to connect with his sister. Making a long story short, we were very appreciative of taking this journey with him. We could not put him on a bus. We could not put him on a train. We could not put that man on a plane. What we had to do was find a couple with a car who was willing to transport this man because he refused to leave the area without his two dogs. It was a success story. He has now been reunited with his sister in San Diego with his two dogs. So that's just we would need to just take into consideration those that want to relocate, go back, but are in need of transport for their animals as well. And then I'm also in agreement with Councilwoman Draper in regards to putting this out to other nonprofits that do the same work. You know, there's others that are they advocate, they help the homeless, and we're looking at a program where it's not a hand out, but a hand up, and we're looking at long-range stability. So kudos. Thank you.
Thank you.
very
If I could just
much.
comment about the gentleman you spoke of.
Henry?
We appreciate what was done as well. When I say we, I think I can speak for the police department and SPCA as well.
Yes.
That gentleman was a subject of a number of calls for service for both police and fire and medical and SPCA.
Yes, I
So
was
we're
also
happy
a
to see
victim
him get
of his- to his
reunited with his
dogs, too.
family.
So I got my bite marks as well.
Are there any other comments from the dais? Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 5 speakers.
Real quick, I'm gonna, just because somebody mentioned it, last council meeting, somebody asked if we could bring back statistics for the Cottonwood Estates. I have those. I'm gonna give them to Bill O'Grone. He can provide copies, and you guys will be able to see those numbers. Just because it was brought up, I do have them here tonight.
And I would recommend that somebody be in contact with those residents and their, to let them know that we're doing something about this.
There's been contacts made, and there's been suggestions for a neighborhood watch group to be established. I really believe that that's gonna be a step in the right direction. That's probably a good move if they were willing to do something like that. We would, the police department would certainly support that, and assign a police officer to those meetings to attend them all.
Yes. Thank you. Speakers, please.
5 public speakers. The first speaker is Bobby O'Reilly, then Bill Spear, then Kevin Thompson.
Good evening once again, council. Hopefully for the last time this evening. As an advocate for Measure U and all of its great benefits, I see Chief Deal's proposal as being, I would venture out to say, a perfect fit. Everything that I envisioned, us paying taxes for an extra $1 for our coffee, an extra whatever, the little bit of money that we added to our taxes, that we advocated for, that we pushed so hard for, these kind of things are exactly what I, as a voting member of this community, wanted to see with this kind of money. To touch on the fire prevention, I see that tremendously needed. A lot of people know that I do reporting of fires and accidents and such. Fire is a huge problem within our community, and specifically vacant lots, abandoned buildings, abandoned vehicles, 5150 individuals who just wish to set things on fire. Prevention officers go out. I'm sure the law enforcement here could explain it better than I, but as I understand it, prevention are the law enforcement of the fire department who goes and handles those individuals. They know the codes for fire, arson, those type of things better than law enforcement, a typical law enforcement officer would. So fire prevention, for me, as a voting constituent that pushed for this, I think absolutely a sworn fire prevention officer would fit great with everything going on here. Also, to touch on the Cottonwood thing real quick, just as an extra set of eyes, myself and a couple other community members have indeed been driving through the estate just to let people know that there's eyes on them.
Thank you.
Bill Spear. Kevin Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. We want to thank you for this opportunity as well, and I want to echo what Bobby O'Reilly just said. I was thinking about that. How could we help Haven of Hope? Would we be able to make a difference in the Cottonwood Estates community? And we would definitely be willing to do whatever we can. But I stand today just to greet you and say Measure U was, I think, just the absolute perfect fit for this community. But I want to talk about Haven of Hope for just a moment. The Oroville Southside Community Improvement Association, or SCIA, has been cleaning Southside Oroville before annexation even took place. In years past, through volunteer work with the Don North, everybody remember Pastor Don North, of Building Bridges of Friendship program, we had the opportunity to participate in an annual cleanup project. Through the Southside Vanguard volunteer cleanup programs, we participated in quarterly cleanups, which included engaging youth and local schools and churches in our community. And most recently, we have provided residential cleanup / rehab for the elderly in the Southside area. And I just want to let you know at this time, when we're pretty much through, we've been doing this all along for many years, is reaching out to our community. I have, when we have the cleanup, I give 2 of my trucks to go down to the Feather River Recreation and Park District and help move all those tons of trash out of the dog park area and beyond. And I've been doing it for a lot of years. And we volunteer in a lot of different areas. So I'm just saying, don't take away from what we're doing right now. We're just hoping and praying that you just can add to the services through our City Works program. And just know that we at Haven of Hope look forward to doing whatever we can to help in that process. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make a real quick comment. You mentioned Don North. You know, that group still meets. And I would encourage you to hook up with that Thursday mornings. They're at Trinity Church. So all pastors are invited to that. So.
Our next speaker is William Bynum, and then the cameraman.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm really here because Tasha Levinson wanted to address you, but she had to go to the Bay Area. She wrote a letter. I think you all got it, but I thought I'd read it for the record. From Tasha, it says, "Dear City Administrator Bill Lagrone, I am so sorry that family duties will not permit me to be at the City Council meeting, so I must ask that you forward this email to the City Council and Mayor. Anyway, the letter reads, to the Oroville Mayor and City Council, thank you so very much for including weed abatement in tonight's agenda. To my mind, regular weed abatement and litter cleanup would be of immeasurable advantage to Oroville. They would allow others to see what I see, the beauty, opportunity, and value that Oroville has. I do hope that your approach will include all nonprofits that can help us in this endeavor. The Hope Center is wonderful. The other nonprofit that I am aware of that can help is Oroville Southside Community Improvement Association. They and any others that can help should be included, if at all possible, in actualizing this commitment. Again, thank you for making this part of the agenda for our community, from Tasha Levinson. And I also support that terrific presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And our last public speaker on this item is the cameraman.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Oroville City Council. Back again. I'd just like to speak on item number 7. First, I'd just like to say what really defines quality of life, in my opinion, for cities anyway, is what type of employees that work for the city, whether they're good to their citizens and whether or not their citizens are good back to their employees. Because when your staff has a good rapport with their citizens and the citizens have a good rapport with city staff, it makes the quality of life great for everyone. As far as the officers and the sergeant go, maybe I don't know the exact total of officers that the city has employed, but maybe we do need more. But as far as sergeants go, yes, we definitely need more sergeants. I definitely feel that that is a need we need to fulfill, especially when I request for a supervisor that is specifically a sergeant, and all I get is a supervising officer. Because if my issue is regarding an officer and I get an officer to deal with my issue, it's sort of like the student it's sort of like a student policing the student and the teacher not doing any proactive enforcement themselves. But on to shopping carts. Well, it seems like to me in this issue, the ordinance isn't the problem itself, it's just getting people to enforce the ordinance. Now, I've seen similar issues like this before with other cities. Now, you guys can sit and put down, approve all the ordinances you want. Now, getting people to actually enforce those ordinances and be available to enforce those ordinances are a completely different story. But a suggestion I have is very popular in European countries. Now, we all know that carts can lock with the metal wheels if you leave the boundaries of the store, but the carts still end up leaving the premises with the metal wheel lock. Now, this may not 100% deter the carts from leaving, but in a lot of European countries, they have chain locks where you have to chain lock the carts together, and it has a little space where you can put your coin in.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last speaker.
Mr. Mayor, can we go over this staff report and let's just, with the recommendations and go one by one and see what the council would like to do? Because I have some specific recommendations regarding the budgeting of this and what we can afford and what we can't afford.
Yes.
So if we could, I'd like to just start with I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. And we're looking for, on this one, it says, provide staff with direction on moving forward with a program focused on assisting our homeless population with transportation needs to be reunited with family and to install a donation portal on the city website assisting and funding with the program. I think that's probably something that we can do, but I would also recommend that we put on our website, whether it's a problem-oriented policing section or just the main page, we'll work through that. But we should include all local folks that are working in this area, ones that are vetted, that have boots on the ground. Haven of Hope, the Oroville Rescue Mission, the Hope Center. What I don't want to do is open up our website as a free-for-all for anybody that comes in and says, hey, I've just started this and I want to be on there. And people are led to believe that they've been vetted, looked into, and reliable and are donating money to them. So we would like to open that up and make it kind of adopt a little bit of the Ben Cares type style. Put the buttons on there. If you choose to send money to, and I'm just going to grab one, the Oroville Rescue Mission, you click on that, and it just redirects you to their website. City is not the fiduciary agent. We don't handle the money. It just sends you from here to their website where you can make the donation. That way, we try to be as inclusive as possible for everybody with that.
Absolutely, and qualified agencies, not, like you said, we can't start developing agencies just to be funded.
We want ones that have actual boots on the ground,
Right.
ones that we know. We know that the rescue mission's there. We know the Hope Center's there. We know that the Haven of Hope is out with the trailer. So we know these things are happening. So, we can, in good conscience, direct people to them to donate their dollars if that's what they choose to do. So if do I have a consensus of the council that that is something you would like to see?
I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, so am I, definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we will move forward on.
In agreement.
We will move forward on that. It'll feature the Highway to Home program, directing the money. If they choose to donate that money to the Hope Center, if they choose to donate to the shower trailer, they will do that. So we will do it that way. We're also looking at the second one up from that direction on looking at our ordinance and adjusting our ordinance. I believe everybody is in agreement on that. If it's the council's direction, we will ask the planning department to begin working on that and take the necessary steps if it has to go to the planning commission or where it has to go, but you will be seeing that come back to you because I believe that there was a consensus already I've seen with this. Now, when it comes to the problem-oriented policing team, as I look at the list of this is a very expensive proposition. This is a lot of equipment. This is a lot to take on all at once. I appreciate the desire to use the Measure U dollars, and I appreciate the fact that we have those available. What I would caution everybody again is this is brand new. This funding source has not stabilized. It's erratic at this point as far as what we're getting in and out. So I'd like to see that stabilize a little bit. The good news is that with whatever we do here, if you gave direction tonight, do all of it. none of this is really going to go into effect until March of 2020. The reason being is not because we're not going to do it, but we have to recruit, we have to find the people, we have to train the people, we have to get them ready to go. So really, very few dollars are going to be expended until then. So what my suggestion would be, whatever it is you direct us to do, is that we fund the difference between March, and I'm just grabbing March, it may be April. We fund between March and April using one-time funding to get us there. It's not sustainable funding. It's a one-time thing. We're buying those particular months. After that, we look and see into our 2020, 2021 fiscal year budget, what revenues are available. If there is general fund dollars to sustain this, sustain what we can of this out of the general fund, and the balance become from the Measure U money to fund these things. Now, what I would suggest that we fund in this, and I'm going to rain on Chief Dill's parade, I believe that a police sergeant is probably appropriate. 2 police officers are probably appropriate. I would recommend that we do not fund the municipal law enforcement officer position. I recommend that we pull one of those from the existing pool that we already have and assign them to this task. The fire prevention officer, I do not support. I believe that sworn officer in that position is too expensive. However, we do have 4 code enforcement officers that were slated to come from the Measure U monies. I would recommend that we assign one of the code enforcement officers from there with an emphasis on fire to deal with what Councilman Pittman was talking about in these issues, because burned out houses all over Oroville, South Oroville, our downtown area, everywhere, we have a problem with those. So I would recommend that. It's a much cheaper solution than a sworn officer. It also creates less unfunded liability as we go because it is a non-sworn position. So I would eliminate that and exchange that out for a code enforcement officer. The marked vehicles is kind of hard to get away from. I would not purchase the fire prevention vehicle at this point. I would recommend a code enforcement vehicle that would be assigned to code enforcement for the person that has an emphasis on fire issues and pop problems. So I would recommend that vehicle as just a regular vehicle with no additional lighting or any additional upgrades in there. The transport vehicle, I would recommend that we do not spend the money on that at this time. We look at putting that into our 2021 fiscal year budget. The other thing that's missing in here is this is all great and these are all the shiny components of this, but we forgot who's going to do the work. And what I mean by that is when you come across camps and you come across properties that are just inundated with garbage and you have to do something about that. We need workers. You don't want to have people that you're paying the salaries that you're paying for uniforms and different things like that out there doing this work. We need public works people. So I would recommend that instead of hiring the others, we hire 2 public works people and a dedicated public works vehicle that is assigned to these types of cleanups and camp abatements and things like that. When they're not working with the POP team, they can work in the parks, they can work on the streets, but their primary function and duty and detail will be POP details. But when they're not being utilized, like I said, they'll be doing something else in the city. So I'm recommending that we look at 1 police sergeant, 2 police officers, a code enforcement officer with an emphasis on fire that is assigned to the POP team, 3 police vehicles, and 2 public works employees and a public work vehicle. Specifically, the kind I'm thinking about is like I think they're F-350s and they have the little dump truck attachment or bed on the back. I mean, it seems to make the most sense, can make the most runs. So that would be my recommendation. I'm not in disagreement with Chief Dill. I spoke with Chief Dill earlier today about this and told him that this is what I was going to say. So I didn't shock him with that. So what we're looking for is, what would you like to do? Because ultimately what you tell us to do, we're going to have to go back, formulate what is the cost of this, when do we think that these bodies will be here, and then come back to you at the next council meeting with the cost and the final approval. It'll be an item on the consent agenda at the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, Chief, I just wanted, for clarification purposes, you had mentioned planning. I didn't hear what you had said in regards to creating an ordinance requiring retail businesses in the city of Oroville to utilize locking. I don't know if you addressed that, but you also mentioned something in regards to one of these line items, Planning Commission. Could you be,
Yes,
could you
ma'am.
be more specific?
That specific item, what we'll do is we will go back and work with our planner and see what we have to do to either amend the ordinance that exists or create a new one. And I will work with him to figure out, or to determine if we have to go to the Planning Commission or if this is something we can bring directly back to the council. If it is something we can bring directly back to the council, we will. If not, we'll be going to the October 24th Planning Commission.
And one other question. What was your recommendation on number 2?
I skipped that one.
Yes.
I scribbled it out in my book.
I knew you skipped one.
This is the City Works program, and this is going to be an increase in this budget. Right now, I think annually, and Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong, but we currently budget $35,000 to this. So in order to implement this recommendation, you would have to make a supplemental appropriation or line item movement of money of $37,500 to come up with the additional $37,500 needed to get $72,000. So to do that, we would have to do that. What my concern is in this is I want to make sure that I have a twofold concern. My first concern is that I want a program that's effective, that's proven, that works, because I need the work done in the community. Right now, if you were to hire 4 individuals for 20 hours a week to do this, because you're going to get 4 individuals plus a supervisor to work 20 hours a week, the equivalent of that for a full-time FTEs for the city of Oroville would be about $180,000 a year. So it's about half the cost of what you would normally get. So I do want that working out there. But this also has a component of a social program in it. The city is not designed or geared toward running social programs, but this is what that is. And to a degree, we are getting work, but the social side of it and the back side of that is taken care of by the Hope Center. I want to make sure that as we move forward and we do these programs, that we treat all of our community members and all of our resource centers, Hope Center, Oroville Rescue Mission, that everybody has an opportunity. So as we do this, I also want to make sure that we consider other programs that are out there as well. Right now, my recommendation would have to be with this particular component is that we do this, but we also have to keep our minds open and our eyes open and awareness of there are other programs out there, and that we should also consider those as those become available and serve a need in our community to fund those as well if we have the funding and the opportunity arises. So, but right now my funding would be to appropriate the other $37,500 toward that program.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. I appreciate your recommendations. I am in alignment with much of what you said. I am in favor of moving this forward and adding as we go, and so I think we kind of, as far as the fire, I think it's a great idea to bring that in from the code enforcement. I think that's blight and code more fits with that part. There's been some comments that kind of seem to be coming up in regarding the Measure U finances being unstable. And I understand that that's new, but the city of Oroville has been collecting taxes from the citizens for a long time. And I think even to be on the conservative side, I mean, I fully trust Ruth, but even as a council, if we were to plan on an average between 2008 and 2016 pre-dam or spillway failure, that's a very conservative approach. I mean, we're not looking, well, are we going to get taxes or not? Or are we going to get funds or not? Well, we've been collecting taxes for a long time, and so this is an addition to what we've been doing for decades in regarding collecting taxes from citizens. If you've been living in Oroville for any measure of time, I'm sure you've got taxes collected from you. And so this is just a bump to what's already been collected for a long time. And so just the comment of saying that the Measure U money is unstable or unable to count on, I think that's doesn't make much sense to me. So going forward, where the money's coming from, I think if we were just to take an average between, 2008 was recession. to 2016 pre-dam. I think that's very conservative as far as what we can at least begin to plan on. Obviously, we don't want to start budgeting off of $4.5 million. Nobody here wants to do that, but there's definitely money that's going to be coming in. That's given. Two things are guaranteed in life: death and taxes. So I think we can count on the fact that there's going to be money coming in from this, from Measure U. So anyway, coming back around to the recommendations that you gave. So the sergeant, the two officers, absolutely, from my standpoint, and then having the code enforcement fill that fire section of it is something I'm in agreement with. So I think if you say that the MLE can move over, then that's fine. But I would rather start this off gradually than coming with the whole package and then having to reduce. I think it's better if we come in gradually and add things as we see them needed.
Well, I would have to, I'm out of line when I'm speaking for what Chief Dill's going to do with his department. I'm making a financial recommendation. I hope Chief Dill can provide that MLE from his current ones that exist. But in there, Vice Mayor Thompson, there is a plan for this money. It was taken to the Oversight Committee, and just to be really clear with everybody here, this plan that's laid out here meets and fits everything that was brought to the Oversight Committee and recommended to the council.
Thank you. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the discussion. I think we're all headed down the right path. We just got to make sure we're all picking up along the trail and getting things done right. One of my concerns about having a fire prevention officer that would be sworn officer is the protection of the officer, because many times the individuals we're talking about that are around or involved with burned out structures and or that kind of activity are not the most the best people in the world. So I have a little worry of officer risk. The fire department has had a sworn pistol-toting officer in the past many times. So that may be an eventual goal for the department and the agency. But I would like to see an additional MLE officer added because my perception of this program is a total separate game changer. So I hate to think that we're going to take from one existing program that's already doing a certain workload and then reassign that to this workload. I realize the financial issues are beneficial in your suggestion, but I'm looking for to have more staff to get this done. And if we can find a way to hire additional MLE and or a fire prevention officer one way or the other, I would be favorable toward that. But otherwise, I'm good to go with this program. And the City Works thing is a great idea. The city has a considerable amount of weed abatement responsibilities over and above just the other problems. And throughout the city properties and the right-of-ways and all those kind of things. And if we don't take care of our own business, we're not showing a very good role model to the rest of the community. So I think City Works is a great idea, and expanding that is, I totally support that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the dais? Councilmember Draper.
Just piggybacking off what Councilor Pittman said about the weed abatement issues. I've had a couple of constituents contact me about the entrance to the airport out there. It's apparently city property.
Yes, ma'am.
And the weeds and grasses are kind of out of control. So maybe this would be a program that would help with that, you know?
Absolutely. Could be somewhere they would be sent to do weed eating and weed abatement.
Okay, thank you.
If I can speak from the peanut gallery, the Public Works employees are critical to the success of the program. If you're going to follow up and clean out debris that we have talked about in many, many meetings. So I'd hope you consider them as well.
Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. Okay, so you pretty much have direction on 3 and 4, kind of what I get. So really what we're down to is 1 and 2. So on 1, you know, I don't have any problem with that. Number 2, when you talked about the was it 37,000? And then you had to move 37, so that's $74,000. And you wanted to make sure that things continued on. So explain to me how that's going to be, to do that program all year. Who's going to get that? Is it going to go to bid? Is it going to go as is? What's happening?
It would be an expansion of the program that currently exists. Right now, we're funding it at $35,000 a year. We would increase it to the
sorry.
$72,000. Yes, sir.
Okay, so nobody else would be able to, no other nonprofit would be able to step into that, so they would automatically get the money?
It would be an expansion of that yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the dais? Having none, we've already spoke. Public comment? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just have a quick review of what the council would like off of the personnel. I mean, I believe I've heard a police sergeant, 2 police officers. There was some question about the municipal law. Is the council's desire to have an additional municipal law enforcement person, or to utilize one that already exists?
Well, I think that our intent was to increase our staff, and weren't we slated to hire additional municipal officers anyway?
Yes, I believe Chief Dill just recently hired 4.
Okay. And weren't we slated to hire some more? 2 more?
Eventually, we were going to hire 2 more from the Measure U money. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
So I'm taking it from that yes, we want to do the municipal law.
Mm-hmm.
The fire prevention, do we want to do sworn, or do we want to do a code enforcement person with an emphasis on fire?
I trust your advice on that, to do the code enforcement officer. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and it'll save us $101,000. I mean, we'll still have to pay the code enforcement officer, but we won't have to pay that large a salary, right? Save some money there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is everybody in agreement on that? Okay, we'll move forward with that then. And then the vehicles, that kind of comes with the territory. I also made a recommendation not to include the transport vehicle, but to look at putting that in our 2020, 2021 budget. Is that something the council would like to see? Okay. Then the public works employees.
I just had one thought on
sorry.
that. On the you talked about a dump truck.
Well, that's for the public works employees.
For the public works.
Right.
So just once we'll look into the dump trailer and then a vehicle. It's a much. In other words, you can get multi-use. There's some of these new dump trailers that are just as effective, can carry just about as much weight.
Okay.
And then that way you can have a vehicle for other types of purposes. Just
Okay.
a thought. Just a thought. You can look
Yes,
into
sir.
it.
Right. Are we interested in the public works employees?
I am.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, we will work this package up, and what we will do at the next council meeting, we'll begin work right immediately on the 2 items that are not expenditures out of our budget at this time. I mean, there is cost, but they're not expenditures. The shopping cart ordinance will begin, and we'll also start working with our IT staff to get our website in a working order so people can make donations to these community groups. We will also be over the next 2 weeks, we will be working on what is the actual funding for this, and we'll bring this back to you in a full package for the next council meeting as a consent item.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports, discussions, and correspondence. Do we have any announcements from the council? Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, last week, attended a firefighters dinner for council members. The cuisine was exquisite, and it was wonderful to share the evening with Councilman Hatley and his spouse. and Councilman Eric Smith and his spouse. And of course, my husband was present as well. Was able to attend the groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting, and we meet once a month. It is a newly formed JPA, and looking forward to it, working on that committee. Additionally, just, I believe it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? It seems like so much happens within a 24-hour period. Met with staff representative from Kamala Harris's Sacramento headquarters. Her name was Annalie Medrano, and we did an overview of Butte County and Oroville affordable housing crisis, what that looks like, and we addressed infrastructure concerns, and I think that's it.
Councilmember Draper.
I attended a planning meeting on September 25th for the NAACP fundraiser dinner to be held December 7th at Southside Community Center. The NAACP president for the state of California will be speaking at that event, and it should be really neat. September 30th, along with Councilor Hatley and Councilor Goodson, I attended a meeting with Senator Kamala Harris's staff assistant, Annalie Medrano, and we discussed Oroville's needs in the areas of affordable housing, infrastructure, veterans, and homelessness. And she will be taking that information back to Senator Harris to give her an idea of what we're dealing with in Oroville here in Butte County. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just want to thank everyone that participated in this year's Salmon Festival. It was another success as one of our signature events, and the next one coming around the corner is the Parade of Lights. So get those, what? Veterans Day Parade. Oh, I see. I knew I was looking at you. Thank you. Veterans Day Parade. Yes, appreciate that correction, Ms. Bunker. So, but with those two events up and coming, just kind of reminding all the folks that, sign up, get involved, build those floats. We love to see them. And then just one other piece of business, Oroville Dam Citizens Advisory Commission that started. And I'm just very, very optimistic that that commission will help give our community a sense of that DWR is being watched, and that they are doing due diligence and providing our community a safe place, and that we can move forward as a community. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's about results, and that's what I talked about that day, in that that we can know for sure that that dam is absolutely 100% battle ready, and that we're good to go, because we need that as a community to move forward, for housing, to encourage people to come and live here, raise their families here, to do business here, right? I mean, if they're fearful that something bad's going to happen, then boy, it really makes it tough to sell our community. And there's other communities that live under dams. Just to the south we have Folsom. I was just there over the weekend, and there's multi-million-dollar homes right underneath that thing, multi-million-dollar businesses. Nobody gives it a second thought under Folsom. Or to our south, Bakersfield, again, another community, 9th largest city in the state of California, and they're under Lake Isabella. And again, they don't worry about that. So, we need to get past this. We can. There's other very, very successful communities that are under dams. And so I'm very, very hopeful that this committee will be able to provide that to us. Thank you for your patience there on me bloviating.
Councilmember Pittman.
Real quick. At the scoreboard meeting we had this last week, Lake Oroville Public Utility shared with us they'd have a new camera, and it's a camera for inspecting the lines that actually go all the way up to the vents of the homes. And I know in our particular part of our collection system, we have many problems that would be in the laterals to our main line. So it might be interesting. They offered to have our staff share the capabilities of that new camera. So I thought I would just pass that along. I thought it was a neat idea. I've never heard of a camera being able to do that, to actually go in the vent of the residence and help us out finding the I&I problem. So they did offer that, and I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I went to, let's see if I can remember all these. SCORE, BCAG, Air Quality Control, Salmon Festival, quite a few things. Anyway, got my son sent off to the Navy, got him sworn in. It's been a pretty hard week or two. Thank you. He just texted me, he just landed in Chicago, and so anyway, really, really proud. I think everyone knows my relationship with my wife and kids is pretty, anyway, I'm not minimizing anyone else's. I'm just kind of emotional when it comes to them. But anyway, I guess that's all my announcements. So future agenda items. I would like to respectfully request that we move the next council meeting from the 15th to the 22nd, so Council Member Smith and myself can attend, because we will be attending the training at the League of Cities in, where's it at? Long Beach. Yeah, for the week of the 15th. So I just respectfully requesting that we move that. It would make a 3-week gap. It would still be within our parameters of when we have to have our meetings. Instead of having the 3-week gap at the end of the month, we would have it in the middle, out of consideration for Councilmember Smith and myself. Councilmember Pittman, would you like to speak?
Oh, I'm fine with that, but what I wanted to do about agenda items to come forward to the future, and this is more of a law enforcement issue, because I did have a couple business owners ask us about the shoplifting issue, and I know that the state has not given us favorable ways of dealing with it, but some of our small businesses are getting hit with shoplifting that's just wiping out their margins and their profits. And I did hear of one situation where the business owner caught the person, law enforcement did come, and there was just a ticket issued, and you can probably spell us maybe in a future meeting the details of that process. But what they did is they put a no trespass order on that individual. And I don't know if that's a functioning way we can deal with it, but I'd be interested if it's possible, because by putting a no trespass order on that individual, at least that shoplifter won't be allowed to come back in that same store again. And I know we can't lock them up and throw the key away, but I'd be interested in having that discussion for our business operators in the community.
We'll have Chief Deal bring a presentation back on petty theft and what the police can and can't do.
And if there's a new ordinance, I'd be definitely in support of whatever could be done with that issue.
Anyone else for future agenda items?
Mr. Mayor, is there a consensus of the council to move the meeting to 10/22, which would be, instead of 2 weeks from today, it'd be 3 weeks from today?
Fine.
Yes.
No worries.
All right, we will do it then on that Tuesday, same day, same time, just on the 22nd, not the 15th.
Thank you. Is that okay with you? Are you back?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure it's 22nd.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, administration reports.
We just have a couple real quick things. At the next council meeting, I will do my best to have Cal Water here to explain to the community and the council what's going on with the PFAS that's in the water and what that means to us and what we should be concerned about or what we shouldn't be concerned about, just to give us some clarity on that. Also, we're currently working on a grant application, a Prop 68 grant application that will include 6 Portland loos and water fountains, along with dog watering fountains, along the trail, along the river, and also a shade structure in Bedrock Park. So hopefully with any success, we'll be able to bring that back to you and see where we go with that.
Thank you. Ruth?
Leo and I have been working on the code enforcement grant. We heard good things from Cal OES. They've asked us for a little bit of more information, but they said it looks really good for our grant, but we probably won't know till January.
Great, thank you. Tom, anything?
No.
Sam? Leo?
Yeah, just a couple items. On Thursday, Thursday past, we had a planning commission workshop, which was initial meeting of many to come on kind of re-envisioning South Oroville, some rezoning and that sort of thing. Just first of a brainstorm, we thought that was appropriate to start with the planning commission, get some input started there. Went really well. 4 or 5 pages of suggestions coming from them. We'll start doing the public meetings next, and it's, we're looking at, 9, 10 meetings over the course of about 9 months to a year to make sure we get plenty of input and try to start developing some plans to move forward there. Pretty excited about it. There's some really good input there. We're just starting with really loose zoning and some great brainstorming, and made sure everybody understood that all ideas are good ideas. Throw them all out there and see what comes of it. It was really good feedback and really good participation. Wes has done a lot of work on the initial framework on that. Additionally, met with VRC Veterans Resource Center yesterday out on site at the municipal service yard. Look at the possibility of them maybe doing an affordable housing project out there in place of North Valley Foundation, where the trailers were looking to go. They're very interested in that. Probably, be approximately 60 units of supportive housing, similar to what they had planned on doing in Chico. Didn't work out, so it looks like it's possibly coming this way. Very excited. It's Veteran Resource Center. They have on-site services. You're looking at it meets extremely low, very low, and low subsidized housing, affordable ability levels, and much needed. So, pretty excited about that. And it was a very positive first meeting. So, that's about it.
Thank you. Chief?
Just to address Councilor Pittman's question, I can certainly put together a presentation about petty thefts and things of that nature, but just to be clear, it is very common practice for businesses to implement a no trespass order when there's a shoplifting that occurs. When we actually make an arrest or make a citation, it's very common practice to have a no trespass order for that individual, whichever business that is. The only other thing I wanted to mention is just to remind the council and anybody else listening that the Hmong New Year's event is October 12th and 13th. It'll be before we meet again here, and we would like to see anybody that's willing or has the time to come out. It's held at the Nelson Sports Complex both days, 12th and 13th of October.
Thank you. Okay, with that adjourns this council meeting, and we will meet again on October 22nd at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
I tried to eat one, they weren't very good.
Are you Michael? No. Matthew, what you last name? Okay, Luke, I seen your name in the paper today, and I said I got my, and I'm gonna tell the kids. No, you're not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you get the flash drive out and then?
They're gonna hear the